I love you. I respect you. But this is where we part, my dragon. I'm sorry. I couldn't be enough.
The weapon I carry is made from my dead dog's soul. The dragon I killed came back as a woman who calls me her lord, and the two teammates I died protecting, they were government agents who'd been erasing my memory for years. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me start where it actually started, bleeding out on a prairie, thinking about a sauna. I wanted to build a house by a lake. That thought drifted through my head as I bled out across an endless green prairie. Floor 2 of the Babel Pit, a modern dungeon that had appeared in the world 3 years ago. The grass swayed at waist height, and I dragged myself through it, one step at a time, painting a red line behind me. A log house, tatami mats with the soft scent of rush grass, heating in winter, cool air in summer. A sauna by the shore where I'd slip in before the birds woke, then plunge into water no one else had touched. A bread baker on staff, someone who'd make whatever matched the mood that morning. A dog, a Shiba maybe, or anything big enough to be fluffy. Friends who'd come over sometimes to eat and drink and make noise. That was my dream, all of it. I really screwed up this time, I muttered, blood pooling warm beneath my reddish-brown mountain parka. My cargo pants were soaked through. Seriously, this is bad. 3 years as an explorer, 3 years of killing monsters, stripping their materials, selling them for cash. I'd gotten good at it, efficient even. I didn't flinch at the sweet blue smell of monster blood. I didn't hesitate when it was time to swing. And then I hesitated. One fight where I held back my trump card because I was too stingy to use it early. Dungeon sickness made me brave in the wrong moments and cheap in the worst ones. My knees buckled. I fell face first into my own blood, the smell of iron and grass mixed together, and I laughed. What else could I do? My terminal rang. The voice that crackled through was Hatamura, my teammate, the good-natured idiot I'd shielded from those one-eyed apes. I can hear you, I said. You're alive? He was alive. Kusakabe too. They'd made it to the rescue team. My win condition had always been simple. Their survival, not mine. As long as they walked out, I won. Listen, I need you to delete my hard drive, the fantasy cosplay folder, the elf stuff, the thin books, all of it. Can't have that showing up in the estate sale. He screamed at me, called me an idiot. I smiled. By then, I was already sinking. The sedimentation phenomenon, a documented anomaly where the dungeon floor dissolves and swallows whatever's on it. My body would leave no trace. The line cut. Darkness closed in. It was a terrible life, if I'm being honest. Parents dead early. The puppy I loved drowned in a river. The staff at the children's home beat me for being difficult. The girl I liked married a doctor. But the 3 years as an explorer, those were fun. Really, genuinely fun. Fighting and killing and earning and eating well. Like being one of those adventurers from the fantasy novels I devoured as a kid. Next time, I whispered, next time I'll do it right. Build the house, open a shop, get a dog, get a family. I smiled, and then there was nothing. Before we go any further, if this story already has you, hit that subscribe button and drop your city in the comments. I want to know where you're watching from. Like the video if you want to see what happens next. Because trust me, dying was the easy part. A voice found me in the dark, warm, playful, almost divine. She said my world was finished, but there was another place, harder than the dungeon, stranger, wilder. She liked that I genuinely enjoyed her sandbox. Not grinding for power, just exploring because exploring was fun. She gave me a gift, a guidance system she called the quest marker, floating arrows, and text that only I could see. She mentioned that child who'd be with me, and she said she thought adventurer suited me best. The transfer listed my traits as they carried over: blunt weapon proficiency, dog lover, kill aptitude, otaku, happy meal brain, combat cognition, and at the bottom, almost like a joke, female luck, hopeless. I didn't think much of it then. Light pulsed in the darkness, and I fell, or rose, through something that had no name. I woke to the sound of wooden wheels on stone. My back hurt. My butt was numb. I was sitting on a hard bench inside a covered wagon, and a lizardman was offering me bread. You finally woke up, he said. His voice was deep and strangely dignified for someone in rags. A quest marker floated above his head, an arrow pointing down, and above it, text, main quest, adventure slave. I stared at the lizardman, blinked, rubbed my eyes. He was still a lizardman. Is a Rizidonian really that unusual? He asked, misreading my silence. I took the bread, black bread, dense and slightly dry, but when I chewed, it had a gentle sweetness, real wheat flavor, honest and warm, the kind of bread someone made because they didn't want anyone to go hungry. This is good, I said. His pupils went wide. His tail went still. He looked away and covered his face with a scaled hand. It's good? He repeated. Is it really? I didn't understand yet why that mattered so much to him. I would, later. The wagon stopped. We were herded out into a massive underground hall, the interior of a structure called Heller's Tower. The slavers were adventurers, second-rate ones who used captured people as canaries to scout for monsters. A dog-faced beastman punched me in the gut for looking at one of the cat-eared sisters on a nearby wagon. I counted that as strike one. Then, he stomped on the bread Lazal had been hiding, crushed it under his boot while the others laughed. The bread Lazal made. The bread no one would eat because a lizard man's hands had touched it. I walked over, picked up the crushed remains, and ate them. Sand and dirt and all. Tastes good, I said, and belched. That was strike 3. 3 dead beastmen later, I summoned Kiriyaiba's mist to cover our escape. Thick white fog, so dense you couldn't see your own hand. The adventurers panicked, slashed each other in the blind chaos. The other slaves scattered. Lazal and I ran. He couldn't see a thing, but I could follow the arrows. The quest marker cut through the fog like a game's navigation system. We slid down a waterfall into a glowing underground cavern and nearly got eaten by a one-eyed giant. Then the armored figure appeared. Gold-plated full armor, horned helmet, a massive trident that glowed red hot. It decapitated the Cyclops in a single stroke and landed on its corpse like it was stepping off a curb. Interesting, the armor said, voice muffled and impossible to gender. You two, kill each other. The survivor gets this. A church-returned seal, a pendant that could teleport you to safety, free you from slavery, grant you citizenship, everything we needed. Lazal picked up the diamond knife the dragon tossed him. I watched his eyes, watched the blade catch the light from the glowing rocks. Then he threw it away. I wanted to build a shop by a lake, he said quietly. Tears pooled in those vertical pupils. A bakery, small, smoke from the chimney reflecting on the water, a few loyal customers in the morning, just that. He sat down and told the dragon his dream was already fulfilled. Someone had eaten his bread and called it good. That was enough. I won't kill him, Lazal said. Do what you want with me. The dragon's voice went cold, disappointed. It tossed the return seal to me and told me to leave. Lazal would die as payment. I caught the seal, turned it over in my hands, flicked it like a coin. Then I threw it to Lazal. Lazal, I said. His name, spoken aloud, was the activation phrase. The seal began to glow around him. His eyes went huge. The light was already taking him. I like you, I told him. Your dream and my greed. They're a perfect match. Let's talk business when I see you next. The quest marker screamed at me. Kill Lazal. Kill Lazal. Kill Lazal. Over and over, the same command. Shut up, I said, and grabbed the arrow with my bare hand, threw it at the dragon. Lazal vanished in a flash of light, and I was alone with a very, very angry dragon. Kiriyaiba was already saturating the air. I'd been spreading it the entire time the dragon was monologuing. Transparent, odorless, invisible blades dissolved into every breath. The dragon was downwind. That was all I needed. You're the prey, I said, not me. Blood began leaking from every joint and seam of that golden armor. Kiriyaiba had been shredding the body inside while the dragon played its little game. The wings that burst from the back plates, I shredded those too. The tail that erupted from the waist, same. It tried to regenerate, tried to become something greater, something divine. I'd fought regenerating monsters before. I knew how to keep cutting until there was nothing left to grow back. I picked up the diamond knife Lazal had thrown away, walked through the pool of dragon blood, and drove it through the helmet's eye slit. The body convulsed once, then nothing. Hunted dragon, the quest marker announced. I looted the corpse. A spare return seal pendant and a gold dog tag. Then, I threw up from Kiriyaiba's backlash, the nausea that always hit after heavy use. Exploration complete, I said, wiping my mouth. See you never, armor guy. The return seal didn't work for me. I said my name. Nothing happened. I tried different pronunciations. Nothing. I wasn't from this world. The seal only worked for this world's souls. Before the frustration could settle in, a silver-haired elf woman appeared from the darkness and saved me from a swarm of crocodile tadpole monsters with a single arrow that bent through the air like it was alive. Her name was Wenfilbana. She knew mine before I spoke it. In a cozy underground camp with a crackling fire and unreasonably good tea, she confirmed what I'd been refusing to believe. I was alive. This was real, and this was another world entirely. My response was not what she expected. An isekai? I said. For real? I may have shouted. She looked genuinely concerned, but when I pressed her for details, how she knew my name, what she meant by calling me her future nemesis, her playful smile hardened into something careful. She used the wind as her pronoun. She spoke about timelines, about having been defeated by me in some version of events I couldn't remember. Kill me properly, she said at the end. silver hair whipping in a wind that came from nowhere. The foolish wind. Then she launched me through the air with her power, and I landed, crashing, stumbling, confused, in the middle of the Adventurers Guild of a city called Agatra. The guild went insane. A cat-eared girl from the slave caravan recognized me immediately. The slave who'd ruined their operation, who'd caused the chaos that got her sister killed. She screamed for my death, offered her body to anyone who'd kill me. The bottom feeders of the guild drew their weapons, drooling over the reward. I was spreading Kiriyaiba, calculating which ones to kill first, when the air changed. Metal on stone. One by one, every person in the room dropped to their knees. Some hit their heads on the floor hard enough to bleed. She walked in like sunlight through a doorway, gold hair that fell to her waist, blazing even in torchlight. Tall, long-legged, wearing armor that made no pretense of hiding her figure. One blue eye, vivid as deep sky. The other was ruined, scarred shut by a knife. My knife, the one I'd driven through the helmet. I searched for you, she said, smiling like the sun had learned to love. My lord, I've come to bring you home. The armor guy, the dragon I'd killed, alive, reborn, and calling me her mate. Dragons have 7 lives. Kill one, and you trigger a biological bond. She didn't choose this. Neither did I. Her butler materialized from thin air, an old man in a black tailcoat who read my soul at a glance and knocked me unconscious in 2 strikes. I blocked the first, didn't see the second. I woke up in a bed made of feathers from some ridiculous bird, with silk sheets and a golden-haired dragon sleeping naked beside me, and I decided, just for that moment, to stop thinking entirely. Wow, I said, warm and fluffy. I closed my eyes and dreamed of a dog I used to know. I was 8 years old, Hiroshima. There was an overpass by the river where a stray puppy lived. I'd named him Taro. He was small and scruffy and warm, and when I held him, the sadness that clung to me like wet clothes would lift just enough to breathe. We were going to run away together, leave the children's home where the staff hit me for being difficult, take food, pack light, and go on an adventure, just the 2 of us. When I got to the overpass, the cardboard shelter was destroyed. 4 middle schoolers stood there, laughing. They told me they'd thrown Taro in the river, watched him sink, thought it was funny. I wanted to kill them. For the first time in my life, I meant it. Taro drowned in the cold. His last thoughts weren't fear. They were apology. I'm sorry I couldn't protect our place. I'm sorry you'll come tomorrow and I won't be there. I'm sorry, Naruhito. I'm sorry. But something found him in the white. A divine entity called Kiri, ancient, vast, a living mist from beyond the edges of the world. It saw something rare in Taro's soul, a love pure enough to become a vessel. I'll be your fangs and claws, Kiri told the drowning dog. That is what a blade is. Taro agreed, not because he understood, because Naruhito was crying, and if he could still help, then nothing else mattered. Kiriyaiba was born, the blade that lived inside my chest, my weapon, my relic, my dead best friend. The 4 boys were found dead by the river, lacerations that weren't the work of any human weapon. The police had no leads. A government unit called Kitano placed 8-year-old Boy T under permanent surveillance. My memory of that day was erased, buried under fog. Hatamura and Kusakabe, my teammates, they weren't friends. They were agents, embedded by the government to watch me. Every exploration debrief, every post-mission medical check, opportunities to wipe my memory again and again, 10 times at least. My brain was a happy meal by the time they were done. I didn't know any of this then, wouldn't know for years. All I knew was that every time I fought in the new world, there was a fog that answered my call, a blade that pulled itself from my chest, a warmth inside the mist that felt, somehow, like a wagging tail. Taro was still with me. He'd always been with me, so there I was. Alive in a city called Agatra, claimed by a dragon I'd killed, with a lizard man baker waiting for me somewhere beyond the walls, a divine blade made from my dead puppy's soul, and a government back home that had been watching me since I was 8. I had no money, no weapons, no shoes worth wearing, no understanding of this world's politics, its factions, its rules, but I had a dream, a house by a lake, a sauna, a dog, good food, people worth keeping, the same dream I'd had while bleeding out on that prairie, the same dream I'd carried through death and rebirth and slavery and dragonfire, except now, for the first time, I had the pieces to build it. A baker who made bread so good it made you cry, a dragon who'd burn the world to keep me warm, a blade that would never stop protecting me because it was forged from love. I didn't know what was coming, the factions, the betrayals, the gods and monsters and girls who'd complicate everything. I didn't know about the bishop who'd see her own death, or the princess who'd betray the dragon she loved, or the knowledge dragon who'd inherited centuries of doomed affection, or the friend I'd find in the underworld who'd been waiting to die since the day she was born. I didn't know any of that yet. All I knew was this. I was alive, I was greedy, and I was done losing people. The adventure, the real one, was just getting started. The bed was absurd, 20 people could have slept in it without touching. I woke up sinking into the thing like it was trying to swallow me, and for a moment, I forgot where I was. Then, I heard her. Alice was sleep-talking beside me, mumbling something about how being stabbed by a male was practically a mating ritual. Her eyelashes were impossibly long, her face impossibly small, and she was blowing a snot bubble. I crawled out of that bed like a man escaping quicksand. The room was less a bedroom and more a hotel lobby. Marble floors, carpets softer than anything I'd ever owned, and standing outside the door, immaculate as always, was Bernald. He chopped my handcuffs off with a casual hand strike. Iron, sliced clean through. I made a sound like a baby because that is what I was in that moment, an infant in a world of monsters. The estate was overwhelming, a dressing room the size of a museum, expressionless maids who whispered about me behind my back. Something about wanting to dress me. Apparently, I was a missed opportunity. Then came the food. They sat me at a table that could seat 40, and a maid named Fannin served a steak that made me forget I was a hostage. Seven-faced pig, some creature I'd never heard of. The meat fell apart on my tongue. Black pepper, nutmeg, a wine-based gravy that balanced the fat without drowning it. My mouth identified the spices before my brain did. A Japanese palate in a medieval world, picking apart flavor profiles like a sommelier at a wine tasting. The cook's eyes lit up when I named the seasonings. Nobody in the estate had ever cared about her technique. They complimented the ingredients, the rarity, the cost. I complimented the craft. She almost cried. It was the first genuine human connection I'd had since arriving, and it happened over a plate of alien pork. But it also told me something ugly. Those spices cost a fortune. A week's worth of the estate's seasoning budget could buy a house in the commoner district, which meant the average citizen's food was going to be bad. Potentially catastrophic for a Japanese person bad. I filed that under problems to solve or die trying. Then came the dragon chamber, stained glass ceilings, a golden throne, and Alice sitting on it like she owned the concept of ownership itself. She announced our marriage to every faction leader in the city, the guildmaster, the governor, the church, all of them bowing so low their foreheads scraped stone. I told her no. The silence that followed could have crushed bone, and for a moment, it nearly did. Her killing intent pressed every person in that hall flat to the ground. Nobles vomited. The governor passed out. I stayed in my chair through sheer stubbornness and 3 years of staring down things that wanted to eat me. Bernal made his case. He told me what marrying a dragon meant. Everything. Wealth, immortality, power. Every desire fulfilled the moment I nodded. All I had to do was say yes, and I almost did. But then I heard it. A dog barking, somewhere in the back of my skull. A boy's voice talking about adventures. A dying man's wish for a house by a lake. Those things weren't given. They were earned, and handing them to someone else to fulfill would be like buying a game and skipping straight to the credits. I don't want any of it, I said. Everything you're offering, it's yours, not mine. And I don't want what isn't mine. Later, in the hot spring bath, because of course this estate had a hot spring, Bernal came to me. He told me about Alice, 100 years old and never once had a friend. A dragon so close to human nature that she collected things the way people crave, but never learned what craving meant when it pointed at another person. He asked me, as a grandfather might beg for his lonely granddaughter, to give her a chance. I told him to send the girl herself. Negotiations through a middleman were beneath both of us. Alice came. She slipped into the bath like it was the most natural thing in the world, talked about the water quality, and then said something quiet that stopped me cold. "I'm scared," she said, "of you hating me. That's never happened before. I've never been scared of anything." She was me, a version of me that never found friends, never learned how. I recognized the loneliness in her voice because I'd carried the same thing for 18 years before two idiots with more courage than sense dragged me out of it. "Naruhito," I said. "That's my name, 27. Dream is to build a house by a lake, and I could use a friend." She said her name back to me, Alice Doral Flairtail, and made a sound like a baby dragon being tickled. We parted as friends, not mates, not spouses, friends. The next morning, I left. She tried to give me 50 platinum coins. I looked at Bernald. He told me that was roughly 100 years of an average citizen's salary. I took 50 copper coins, 3 days at a cheap inn, told her I'd pay it back. Alice's face went blank, not angry blank, not confused blank. She stared at me like I'd spoken a language that didn't exist, like the concept of someone refusing money had broken something fundamental in her operating system. Bernal later told me she stood in that exact spot for 10 minutes after I left, whispering the word copper to herself. She also gave me my exploration clothes back, my Red Mountain parka, cargo pants, the gear I'd been wearing when I died. She'd bought them from the guild as a clue to find me. On top of that, a hooded robe, velvet-like material, impossibly tough, the kind of thing a Jedi would wear if Jedi had dragon sponsors. Bernald drove me down from the estate in a horse-drawn carriage. His black stallion, Buenos, nudged my hand when I touched his neck. Apparently, the horse never let strangers near his mane. The butler and I talked about the city, the tower, the world. He spoke of the Tower of Harrell like it was both a wonder and a wound. Its top disappeared into nowhere. Time inside it bent like light through water. The adventurers who climbed it did so knowing they might come back to a world that had moved on without them. At the city gates, Bernal straightened his white gloves and bowed. Not deep, not performative. The bow of one dangerous man acknowledging another. "May the force be with you," I told him, because I was wearing the robe and it felt criminal not to. He didn't understand the reference, but he smiled anyway. Then I was alone. Agatra spread below me like a painting. Brick houses, a river cutting through the center, a cathedral spire, and all of it enclosed by walls 100 meters tall. The Tower of Harrell rose from the city's heart, black and infinite, its top vanishing into somewhere that wasn't quite this world. I filed that away for later. The streets hit me with everything at once. Vendors screaming about produce, blacksmiths hawking armor, adventurers arguing over prices. It was chaos and color and noise, and for the first time since I'd arrived in this world, I felt the giddiness of a new game where the tutorial had just ended and the map was wide open. Then a kid bumped into me and stole my wallet. I chased him through alleys, over carts, past startled civilians. The boy was fast, 11 years old, built like a pickpocket should be, with a face too pretty for the streets. His name was Luca, and he'd taken my money to feed his family. A group of older thugs had already beaten him for it by the time I caught up. 3 of them, all taller than me, which in this world wasn't hard. The first one invoked some gang's name like it was supposed to scare me. I grabbed his collar and introduced his face to the nearest wall. The second tried to run. I caught him at the waist, lifted him like a sack of flour, and threw him into his friend. The third just stood there with his mouth open until I closed it with my knee. They were pathetically weak. Not weak like they lacked training, weak like they lacked calories. Street thugs who'd built their entire identity around terrorizing people smaller than them. The moment they met someone who hit back, they folded like paper. That's how I met the kids. Rita, the sharp one, 12 years old with a mind like a razor. He deduced I was looking for someone before I'd said a word. Nico, the fierce girl with red hair and a right hook that had genuine form. Pello, the dreamy one who carried baby Shiro on his back everywhere. And Luca, my pickpocket, who couldn't meet my eyes. I hired them. Copper coins on the table, a handshake with Rita, and a simple deal. Find the lizardman called Lazal, and the money's yours. I made it clear, this was business, not charity. I respected Rita's mind. I respected Luca's nerve. But I told them straight, steal from me again and I'll break every finger you have. Rita found Lazal's trail, an abandoned courtyard in the slum district, a makeshift tent, still warm ashes from a fire, a cup with something sweet drying at the bottom. Kiriyaiba went berserk in my chest, rattling like a puppy that smelled its owner. When I pulled the blade out, it skittered across the ground, sniffing at the campsite, then released a cloud of white fog that flushed Lazal straight out of his shadow. He emerged coughing, scales gleaming, tail curled in shock. By our great fang, Naruhito, we sat in the slum's open-air food court. If you could call rotting stalls and drunk vagrants a food court. And I told him everything. Alice, the bath, the marriage refusal, the butler who could probably kill gods. Lazal's mind broke 3 separate times, trying to process it all. He told me his side, a month hiding in the shadows. Literally, his skill let him melt into darkness and sleep there. The city, the church, the Adventurers Guild, even a criminal organization called Karasu had been hunting him. He'd evaded them all. Then he told me about Karasu, a syndicate that ran the underworld, imperial reach, noble connections, the kind of organization you didn't cross unless you wanted to disappear. I changed the subject. Lazal stared at me. He'd just confessed to being hunted by an imperial-scale criminal organization, and I'd responded by asking about his bread recipe. "You're not concerned?" he asked. "I killed a dragon for you, Lazal. A street gang doesn't change my math." He laughed, a real laugh, the kind that came from deep in his chest and made his tail uncurl. He said he'd follow me, that his life was mine to spend. I told him to stop being dramatic and help me figure out how to register as adventurers. I said goodbye to the kids, told them it was over. Business concluded. Relationship terminated. Rita wanted to keep helping. Nico cried. Luca went quiet in a way that made my chest tight. Little Pello waved with both hands, while Shiro babbled on his back. I walked away and told myself it was the right call. Don't get attached. Don't take on more than you can protect. That was the rule. It lasted about 2 hours. Nico found us. She was beaten half to death, bruises on her face, blood in her mouth, one eye swelling shut. She dragged herself across the slum to find us because we were the only adults who'd ever treated her like a person. Kurisu had come for the kids. They wanted information about me, about the man in the robe who was looking for the lizard man. When the kids wouldn't talk, the thugs made examples of them. Luca burned his one daily skill charge, getting Nico to a rooftop so she could escape. Rita and Luca stayed behind. Nico asked me to save them. I said no. I told her the truth. I couldn't risk my life for children I'd known half a day. Lazal was my priority. The kids weren't inside the circle of people I'd die for. That was the math, and the math was right. She looked at me with those swollen eyes and said, "Thank you for being kind to us." Then she stood up, wiped the blood off her mouth, and started walking back toward the people who'd beaten her. 11 years old, ready to die beside her friends, rather than let a stranger feel guilty. Something inside me cracked, not broke, cracked, like ice on a lake in spring. A sound I'd heard once before, a long time ago, when a puppy followed me home, and I'd told myself I didn't need it. Lazal, I'm already with you. The thing about Karasu is that they were used to preying on the helpless. They'd built their power on terrorizing children and extorting drunks. They had numbers and knives, and a handsome leader with a tattoo on his cheek and a smile that never reached his eyes. What they didn't have was 3 years of killing monsters in a dungeon that made their worst nightmares look like bedtime stories. Kiriyaiba came out hungry. The fog rolled through those back alleys like a living thing, and inside it, my blade did what it was made to do. I didn't taunt them. I didn't give speeches. I moved through the fog and cut them apart, quick, efficient, the way you clear a floor of vermin, because leaving even one alive means they breed and come back stronger. Lazal handled the perimeter. His shadow skills funneled runners back into the fog. Between the two of us, we dismantled 20 men in minutes. The handsome leader was last. He crawled through his subordinate's blood with that pretty face twisted into something honest for the first time. I snapped my fingers and Kiriyaiba finished it from inside his body. Taro, my blade, my dead friend's soul, had helped me protect children. The symmetry of that was almost too much to hold. Then I looted the bodies because I was broke and dead men don't need wallets. Rita was alive, barely, knife wounds to the abdomen, the kind meant to make you suffer, not to kill quickly. Lazal's tribal medicine stopped the bleeding, but both of us knew it wasn't enough. The light in his eyes was dimming. He apologized to me for causing trouble. This kid, bleeding out on a wooden plank in a ruined courtyard, was sorry for inconveniencing the adult who'd shown up too late. I held his hand and told him about a place. Cold water, green grass, a sky with one cloud floating through it, a place where nobody could hurt him, where he could drink his fill and sleep on soft ground and wait for the rest of us. He asked if I'd really come. I said yes. Didn't know if it was a lie or not. Rita smiled. His grip went slack, and for a long moment, I was sure it was over. But the kid held on, his breathing shallow to almost nothing, then steadied. Lazal checked his pulse and looked at me with those vertical pupils wide open. He's still here. I didn't let go of his hand for another hour. Nico pressed her face into Lazal's chest and didn't make a sound. Luca sat against the wall with his cap pulled over his eyes. Pello held Shiro tight and rocked back and forth. Rita lived. I still don't fully understand how. Lazal's tribal medicine, the resilience of a kid who'd survived the streets since birth, sheer stubbornness, pick your explanation. None of them felt adequate. He'd been cut deep enough that I could see the wrong color of things inside him, and yet his heart kept beating. But the cost was real. I'd killed every person responsible, 20 men, maybe more, and the child in front of me had still nearly died because I'd hesitated first. I'd done the math and decided they weren't worth the risk, and by the time I changed my mind, the price had already been charged. That was the lesson. It would live inside me forever, right next to Taro. That silence followed me through 12 inns that turned us away. A man in a bloody robe, a lizard man, 3 traumatized children, and a baby. We weren't exactly premium guests. Most innkeepers took one look and shut the door. One of them spat. The 13th was run by a heavy-set woman with a pipe and zero patience for pleasantries. She charged us double, told us we smelled, and pointed to the courtyard well where we could wash. Then, after the dining room closed, she sent leftovers to our room without being asked. I liked her immediately. That evening, something small happened that stuck with me. The kids saw the courtyard well and lost their minds. Clean water, not rainwater, not puddle water. Actual clean water in a wooden tub, meant for washing. Nico nearly stripped naked before I physically stopped her and explained the concept of male-female bathing separation. Rita told me they'd never washed with clean water before. They'd bathed in the rain when it came. Otherwise, they didn't. I taught them how to wash, showed them how to use the soap the innkeeper had left. Watched 5 children discover the feeling of being clean for the first time in their lives, and something in my chest went tight and stayed there. After they were fed on the innkeeper's secret leftovers and sleeping in a pile like puppies, I sat in the courtyard with Lazal and Rita. A lantern burned between us. Moths circled. The moon was high and white and impossibly still. I said, I want to build a house by a lake. Lazal looked at me like I'd lost my mind. Rita, upright somehow, wounds bound, pale as chalk, but alive in a way that defied everything I knew about abdominal injuries, just stared. Money, I said. That's what we need first. Land costs money. A house costs money. Living costs money. But here's the thing people forget. Money isn't the destination. It's the vehicle. The destination is what you see when you close your eyes and ask yourself, what do I actually want? I pointed at Lazal. You told me once you wanted to give instead of take. Your bread is the best thing I've eaten in this world. Case closed. You're opening a bakery. Lazal opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again. Next, I said, turning to Rita. What do you want? The boy who'd nearly died that afternoon thought for a long time. Then, he said, the water was cold. When we washed tonight, it was the first time I ever felt clean water. I want this to continue. That's all. Maintaining something worth keeping is also a fight, I told him. So congratulations. You're also in the bakery. I laid it out. Lazal's bread was commercially viable. This world's food was terrible, and his baking was genuinely exceptional. I had the business sense. The kids had street knowledge and loyalty. We'd register as adventurers for immediate income, build capital, and invest in the bakery. Long-term goal, a lakeside house with a sauna made from 300-year-old dead trees, a dog in the yard, and bread in the oven. Something happened while I spoke. I could feel it, a warmth behind my words that wasn't entirely mine. My skill, tongue that enraptures, had activated on its own, not to manipulate, to persuade, because I meant every single word, and the skill recognized sincerity the way Kiriyaiba recognized danger. Lazal's tail uncurled. Rita's eyes got bright. Even in the dark, I could see it. Hope landing on people who'd forgotten what it looked like. You're insane, Lazal said. Probably. A bakery. A bakery. He exhaled through his nose in that way lizardmen do when they're trying not to laugh. Then, he looked at me with those vertical pupils and said, I'm in. Rita punched the bench. Me too. Whatever it takes. We sat there a while longer. The lantern flickered. The moths kept circling. Somewhere inside the inn, Nico was talking in her sleep, and Pello was snoring, and baby Shiro was making sounds that weren't quite words yet. I had a base, an inn run by a gruff woman who fed strays when nobody was looking. I had a crew, a lizardman baker, a genius kid, a fierce girl, a pickpocket with a conscience, and 2 tiny humans who didn't know the world was supposed to be cruel. I had a plan. Adventurer work for cash, bread for empire, and I had a vision, a house by a lake, a sauna, a dog, no money, no rank, no status, no guarantees. But I had direction, and I had people. Tomorrow, we'd register at the Adventurers Guild. Tomorrow, the real work would start. But tonight, under a moon that looked exactly like the one back home, I let myself sit still, Rita's hand going slack in mine. The moment I thought he was gone, the color of his insides through the wound, I'd carry that, the way I carried Taro, every person I'd failed to protect in time, stacked inside my chest like stones in a river, weighing me down and keeping me grounded at the same time. But I was done losing people, done hesitating, done doing math when children were bleeding. That was the promise. Not to anyone else, to myself. The lakeside house, the bakery, the crew, all of it was mine, and I'd burn anything that tried to take it. Greedy to the bone. That's what I was. That's what I'd always be. Phase 3, Trial by Rank. The Adventurers Guild smelled like beer and burnt fat at 7 in the morning. Lazal and I stood in the doorway of a longhouse, built like an upturned ship, its walls decorated with shields, swords, and bones from creatures I couldn't identify. Inside was chaos. Adventurers shoving each other at the request board, beast folk comparing tail oils, dwarves nursing horned cups of ale. It was every fantasy I'd ever consumed made flesh, and I'd be lying if I said my heart wasn't racing. Incredible, I muttered. Dwarves, beast folk, hobbits. All that's missing is an elf. Lazal smiled at that. Pure elves are rare, but you'll find half-elves. First time in a guild? Something like it. I'd been in places just as dangerous. Never won this loud before breakfast. We didn't make it 10 steps inside. A hulking adventurer shoulder-checked Lazal on purpose, spat at his feet, called him a lizard thief. The standard play, pick on the Rizadonian, get a laugh from your buddies, feel big about yourself. Lazal apologized, kept his head down, tried to steer us away. I am not the kind of person who steers away. Interesting build you've got there, I said, loud enough for the whole room. Belly hanging over your belt, legs like sticks. You just stack everything on top and hope it doesn't tip? The big man swung. I kicked him between the legs. He folded. I was genuinely about about to crush his windpipe when a voice behind me stopped everything cold. That's enough. Don't move, black hair. The killing intent was overwhelming, a bowstring creaking, an arrow aimed at my spine. I knew that pressure. The same tear as Alice, the same tear as Bernald, something that could erase me without breaking a sweat. I raised my hands slowly. When I turned around, I saw silver hair and silver eyes. Wenfil Bana, except it wasn't. Same face, same impossible beauty, but the eyes were silver instead of rainbow, and there was no recognition in them. She didn't know me. She didn't know Kiriyaiba. When I said her full name, the name she'd given me herself at the tower, her face went blank with what I can only describe as ancient rage. She slammed me to the floor so fast I didn't register the movement. 1 second, I was standing. The next, my face was pressed into the wooden planks, and my lungs had forgotten how to work. Lazal tried to reach me and got blasted into a wall with a flick of her fingers. Not magic, just force. The kind of casual violence that tells you the person doing it isn't even trying. Half the adventurers in the guild dropped unconscious from the pressure of her voice alone, not her fists. Her voice. When she spoke, the words carried weight that pressed on your chest like a stone slab. I started feeding Kiriyaiba into the air around us, thin, invisible, concentrated. If I was going to die here, I was taking this silver-haired nightmare with me. My fingers tapped the floorboards in rhythm, spreading the mist while she was focused on the confrontation above me. Then the temperature changed. Heat. Familiar, terrifying, oddly reassuring heat. Who gave you permission to touch what's mine, Archer? Alice stood in the doorway, golden hair catching the chandelier light, one deep blue eye burning with quiet fury, white shirt, leather pants, utterly simple clothing that somehow made her the most noticeable thing in the building. She'd come for me. She'd been tracking my movements since I left the embassy. Apparently, she'd read in a book that moderate distance nurtures friendship, and had interpreted that as follow him invisibly and intervene when necessary. The standoff between Alice and the Silver Archer was the single most frightening experience of my life to that point, and I'd fought both of them separately. Two beings who could destroy the city were measuring each other across a room, trading elegant insults that carried enough killing intent to peel paint. Somehow, Frontier Lord Sapin, a pudgy man with a nervous mustache who'd been pretending to be unconscious this entire time, dragged himself upright and brokered a ceasefire before the guild became a crater. Alice gave what could charitably be called an apology. The archer withdrew, still staring at me like I was a puzzle she hadn't solved. After the excitement died down, the guildmaster, a sharp-eyed woman named Hidemarie, processed our registration in a private room. She wore glasses and a suit-like uniform, and she explained the adventurer system with the calm precision of someone who'd done this 1,000 times while secretly wanting to strangle someone. Lazal handled most of the conversation. He and the guildmaster spoke in the language of adults. Politics, economy, veiled warnings dressed in courtesy. I listened, filing information. The system was clean. 4 ranks, quests on the board, or hunt in the field and sell what you bring back. Die and nobody cries for you. What grabbed me was the hunting system. Self-directed, no safety net. Go outside the walls. Kill what you can carry. Sell it. Self-responsibility, the guild master said with a pleasant smile. That's the foundation. Cold, rational. I respected it. One oddity during registration. They used a crystal to verify us. Some kind of identification tool. It worked fine on Lazal. On me, the thing flickered, glitched, and displayed a word nobody in the room recognized. Sapan, still pretending to sleep, cracked one eye open at that exact moment. I noticed, filed it. The government was already watching me. I just didn't know how closely. We left as official rank 4 adventurers. Alice had tried to form a party with us and been denied by rank requirements. She pouted about it. The most powerful being I'd ever met actually pouted, with her dragon tail swishing out of her clothes. She made me promise to rank up fast. Our first hunt was a disaster. Giant boar. The guild pamphlet described it as a common beginner target. What the pamphlet failed to mention was that beginner meant for groups of rank 3 adventurers with actual combat levels. The thing was the size of a small car, all muscle, tusks, and blind aggression. It charged in a straight line at ridiculous speed and kept charging. Kiriyaiba needs setup time, range calibration, ambient mist to work through. The board didn't believe in any of that. It believed in running at you until one of you was paced. After 40 minutes of sliding in dirt, dodging by inches, and eating ground, Lazal and I sat on the open plains, covered in grass stains and humiliation. That was not the entrance I had envisioned, Lazal said. pressing his bruised ribs. My face hit the ground 3 times. I counted 4. We sat there catching our breath. The boar had exposed a real gap. 3 years of dungeon combat didn't translate perfectly to open field monster hunting. In dungeons, corridors funnel enemies toward you. Here, the creatures had space. They used it. The boar had room to build speed, room to circle, room to simply outrun us. Different terrain, different rules. But failure is only failure if you stop there. I noticed something while we were sitting in the grass. A lone giant boar, separated from its group, nervous, scanning the field like prey, not predator. Something had spooked it. Then I saw why. A massive snake, body thick as a tree trunk, erupted from the grass in a blur of camouflaged scales and wrapped around the boar in seconds. The crushing was methodical, ribs snapping like sticks. The boar screamed, a sound uncomfortably close to human, and then stopped. The snake unhinged its jaw and swallowed the entire thing, head to tail. Titanosmea, Lazal read from the guild pamphlet, voice strained, grade 2 reptile, nocturnal hunter, camouflage ability. Eyes are used in jewelry and trade for high prices. Grade 2, way above our rank on paper. But I'd fought things with scales before. Snake-type monsters were dangerous, yes. They were also predictable, ambush predators that relied on concealment and constriction. Take away the surprise, force them out of their den, and they panic. That one, I said. We're hunting that. The plan was built on Lazal's shadow ability and my Kiriyaiba. His power turned us invisible, folded us into the shadows of the grass. My weapon worked best at close range, in enclosed spaces, against targets that couldn't run. A snake digesting a meal in its underground burrow was all 3 of those things. We tracked the Titanosmea to its den in the northern forest. I covered myself in wet mud to mask my body heat. A trick from a movie about a soldier fighting an alien hunter, if you can believe that. Lazal thought I was losing my mind. He wasn't entirely wrong. Inside the shadow, we crept to the burrow entrance. I shoved my arm into the hole and let Kiriyaiba flow inside. The invisible blades went to work on the snake's insides, shredding organs without marking the valuable outer skin. The first one thrashed its way out of the den, half dead, and spitting blue blood. I was waiting at the exit. "Welcome out," I said. It lunged, jaws wide, fangs out. A snake this size didn't need to bite, but monster biology doesn't follow textbooks. I dodged between trees, letting it chase me, keeping it angry, keeping it bleeding. Every second it moved was a second Kiriyaiba's internal damage spread further. The forest floor shook with each lunge. Blue blood painted the bark of oak trees in streaks. When it finally slowed, when its body began to list and its strikes lost their snap, Lazal dropped from a branch above, silent as his namesake shadow. His knife drove through the skull behind the third eye, the jeweled one that traders paid fortunes for. The blade sank to the hilt. The snake convulsed once, twice, and collapsed. We repeated the process on the mate. Bigger, meaner, but the same weakness, the same strategy. By the end, my arms were shaking from Kiriyaiba's backlash, and Lazal's scales had turned a deeper shade of green from exertion. 4 Titanosmea in the den total, 2 kills. The juveniles and 1 adult fled. Smart of them. We loaded the carcasses onto a cart we'd borrowed earlier from a merchant named Dramola. He ran a cart rental business outside the eastern gate. Free loaners, designed so adventurers would pass his stall on their way back to the guild. I'd seen through his game the moment he opened his mouth. He'd seen that I'd seen. We respected each other for it. When we wheeled 2 grade 2 monsters back to his market stall, the crowd parted like we were carrying plague. Stares, whispers. Someone muttered about a dragon. Someone else said our names. We were becoming recognizable, and I wasn't sure that was a good thing. Dramola's composure cracked for exactly half a second. He stared at the dead snakes. Then, he lit his cigar backwards, noticed, put it out on his boot, and pretended nothing unusual had happened. The negotiation was fast. He needed product to build his merchant empire. We needed income, and a buyer who wouldn't ask questions about our methods. We struck a supply contract on the spot. Exclusive first right of refusal on any Titanosmea materials. First real business relationship in this world. Our reputation as the snake hunters of Agatra began that day, and it would grow faster than I expected. Trouble found us on a later hunt. A girl fell from the sky, not jumped from a building. Fell from a height that should have turned her into paste, cratered the stone road, and bounced up smiling. She stood maybe 150 centimeters tall, wore silver armor engraved with star patterns, and announced herself at maximum volume. "I am the first knight of the Angel Church, Stole Pura, Dis." Every sentence ended with dis. Every self-assessment included, "I'm actually quite clever, dis." Her intelligence, and I mean this literally, the system showed me her stats, was 1, the number 1, a single digit. I'd met smarter boars, but her strength was listed as 12 to 100. The same scale put the Titanosmea at 10. She'd misread the situation completely. We'd just finished off a group of bandits who'd followed us from the gate. 5 guys with cheap swords and cheaper ambitions, trying to steal our snake haul. 4 were dead. The 5th was alive, only because I hadn't gotten to him yet. That survivor clung to Stoll like she was his mother, sobbing, screaming, painting us as monsters. He was good at it, the kind of man who survived not through strength, but through sheer volume of lies. Stoll, with her intelligence of 1, was absorbing every word like gospel. I tried to explain. Lazal tried to explain. The bandit screamed louder each time. Then, that bandit, in a fit of frustrated desperation, said something about the angel church being useless. Stoll's face emptied. The bubbly girl vanished. What replaced her made my dungeon-trained instincts scream at me to run. "Insult the church again," she said quietly, "and I'll separate your head from your body." Dis. She deployed her sacred relic, Justice. A twisted statue materialized behind her, folded wings, mismatched limbs, a collage of divine figures stitched together wrong. It was the most unsettling thing I'd seen in this world, and I'd seen a dragon bleed. She asked the bandit one question. He lied. He started clawing at his own throat. Foam bubbled from his lips. His legs kicked. Then he was still. "Unfortunate Dis," Stoll said, immediately cheerful again. "Goodbye, liar." Lazal and I grabbed our cart and started walking. Fast, not fast enough. Actually, Stoll called behind us. "Could you wait, Dis?" She suspected me. The gate guards I'd killed during the Karasu operation. Stoll's colleague, a knight called Clan attuned to the concept of death, had traced the killing scent. Cold, deliberate, unwavering. Someone exactly like me. Stoll activated Justice in formal interrogation mode. The statue loomed behind her. The air crystallized. One lie, and I'd die the way that bandit just had. "Did you kill the gate guards?" she asked. 3 years of living where one wrong step meant death had taught my body not to waste energy on panic. My heartbeat was steady, but my mind was running full speed. Justice detected lies. Justice killed liars. If I said no, I'd die. If I said yes, I'd be arrested. And the bakery, the house by the lake, the kids waiting at the inn, all of it was finished, unless I could find words that were true. Justice evaluated statements, not context, not hidden thoughts. The specific words measured against the speaker's belief. Stoll herself had called the dead guards loyal, good, faithful servants of the church. She'd said it with total conviction. I built my answer on her foundation. "I swear," I said, meeting her eyes without blinking, "that neither I nor Lazal killed the loyal, good, faithful gate guards of this empire." Every word was true. The guards I'd killed were corrupt. They extorted travelers, covered for criminal operations, beat children for sport. They were not loyal, not good, not faithful. I hadn't killed the people Stoll described, because the people she described didn't exist among the dead. Justice processed the statement. The statue didn't move. Stoll's face cycled through relief, confusion, and horror in 2 seconds flat. She dropped to her knees. Oh no, Dis. I pointed justice at innocent people. I'm the worst knight. She bowed so hard her forehead cracked the cobblestone. Twice. Behind me, Lazal exhaled for what I'm fairly sure was the first time in a full minute. "It's fine," I said. "You were doing your job." "You are very generous, Dis. I will repay this debt on my honor." What I wanted was distance. What fate gave me was the opposite. Stoll insisted on pulling our cart back to the city. She was stronger than both of us combined and seemed to consider it penance. Along the way, she chattered endlessly about the church, about her duties, about how wonderful adventurers were. Then, she asked if we'd heard about the famous dragon slayer, the one with a Risidonian companion and black hair. Lazal and I looked at each other. "Sounds like a real character," I said. "The best character, Dis. I hope to cross swords with him someday." She was pulling a cart full of dead snakes while cheerfully fantasizing about fighting us. I asked her why she became a knight. Not because I needed to know, because something about her felt familiar. "I was born for it, Dis," she said, simply, without sadness. "That's what the church decided, and the church is always right. Born to serve, no choice in the matter." I'd heard that tone before, from a girl in another life, another world, who also believed she had to be what others told her to be. "Everywhere," I muttered. "They're everywhere." "What was that, Dis?" "Nothing. Keep pulling." The ambush came later, at Dramola's marketplace stall. The Night Order had been watching all along. Clan had tracked Lazal's shadow magic the moment he'd used it near Stoll. A second confirmation came from another knight. They'd made their decision. Arrest first, Questions later. Stoll hit me with a gut punch that folded me in half. Her fist was the size of a child's. It hit like a truck. I caught her arm, locked it, told Lazal to run. He vanished into shadow. Clan pursued. That left me and the first knight, alone in a crowded market. I fought dirty, had no choice. Stoll was faster, stronger, and armed. I was unarmed in a marketplace full of terrified civilians. Dramola, getting dragged to safety by his quick-thinking employee Biswe, shouted one sentence as he was hauled away. "The back drawer, and the shield's free. Use it." The shop counter's back drawer was stuck on purpose. You had to rip it with force, a security measure. I tore it open and found a mace, 80 centimeters of black iron with a diamond-shaped head, a night killer, a blunt instrument designed to crack open armored opponents. I'd always liked blunt weapons, a baseball bat in the school bully's mansion, a pipe wrench against a Yakuza van's windshield. The first monster I ever killed in a dungeon, I killed with a crowbar. Something about the simplicity of hitting things until they stop moving has always appealed to me. The mace fit my hand like it belonged there. I grabbed a shield off Dramola's display wall and went to work. Stoll drew her rapier. In open combat, she'd kill me in seconds, so I didn't give her open combat. I used the crowd. The panicking marketplace was a maze of fleeing people, overturned stalls, screaming children. Stoll wouldn't swing her blade where bystanders could be cut. Her justice was genuine, not theatrical. She genuinely could not bring herself to risk a civilian. I exploited that without an ounce of guilt. Hit and run, emerge from the stampede, swing the mace at her skull, disappear before she could draw. She blocked every strike with reflexes that made my dungeon instincts weep, but she couldn't counterattack. Not with people everywhere. I was the only one swinging a weapon designed to hit precisely one person at a time. She realized what I was doing. Too late. I disarmed her. A full-force shield bash to her sword hand. The rapier spun away. One more swing and I could knock her out, grab Lazal, disappear. Then she smiled. "You thought you won, Dis?" The sword I'd knocked away hadn't gone where physics dictated. It hung in the air above us, spinning slowly, its point aimed at my throat. Justice's combat mode, not the interrogation version, the full thing. Reality itself was bending to make sure Stoll won. Execution, hanging sword. Something invisible cinched around my neck. The world went black. I woke inside a void, an endless staircase climbing into darkness. On every side, bodies hung from ropes, kicking, choking, groaning in an eternal loop. This was Justice's inner domain, the place where the guilty serve their sentence, not death. Something worse, an eternity of suffocation that never quite finishes. I recognized one of them, the bandit Stoll had killed earlier. He dangled nearby, face bloated blue, blood tears leaking from his eyes. He looked at me and grinned. "Welcome," his expression said. "Welcome to the rest of forever." The relic tried to break me. It regressed my mind to childhood, the orphanage hallway, the cold meals, the foster parents who said I was creepy, that I stared too much, that no child should be this quiet. It fed me the same lines I'd been hearing since I was old enough to understand that nobody wanted me. Your life has no value. Climb the stairs. Accept the sentence. Somewhere inside the vision, a girl with blue eyes tried to stop me. Stoll. The real Stoll, buried somewhere beneath the relic's control, crying, saying this wasn't what she wanted. Justice crushed her with a blade of light and told me to keep climbing. But I'd heard all that before. Every word, from real people in the real world. Teachers, foster parents, other kids. They'd all told me I was worthless in their own special ways, and I'd survived every single one of them. The relic wanted submission. I gave it stubbornness. The relic wanted despair. I gave it spite. My mind is a happy meal. It doesn't break the way normal minds break. My stubbornness held long enough. Outside, the ceasefire came. Alice's faction, the church's own bishop and saint. They intervened before the marketplace became a graveyard. I woke up with rope burns on my neck and blood in my mouth. Lazal wasn't beside me. Clan had tracked him through the shadows. He was captured. Stoll stood over me, her face unreadable, knight and prisoner now. The last thing I registered before losing consciousness again was the sky. Clear, blue, impossibly far away. Like the lake I'd promised myself. Like every dream I'd ever built. Always visible, never close enough to touch. They put me in chains and carried me toward the church. I was no longer a free man. I woke up clean. That was the first wrong thing. When you pass out in chains with rope burns on your neck, you don't wake up smelling like soap. Someone had bathed me, changed my clothes, seen everything. The scars, the brand where Kiri fuses with my ribs. That bothered me more than the chains. A white-furred, cat-eared nun led us down a corridor of stained glass. Lazal walked beside me, tail curling and uncurling. They'd washed him too. The door opened into a candlelit room, fur rugs, candle-dripping chandelier, gold-threaded sofa, and sitting on that sofa, hands folded, smile perfect, was Bishop Canosa Taelfuild. I must sincerely apologize for the repeated misconduct of our night order, she said, every syllable polished, every pause rehearsed. Please, sit. Lazal sat immediately, accepted a silver cup of honeyed water, and started sipping like he'd been invited to afternoon tea. I didn't touch mine. The woman across from me was a fox wearing a human face, not the message telling me that, something deeper, the way her eyelids never quite opened, the way her voice hit exactly the right notes of warmth and regret. Every single thing about her was manufactured. What do you actually want? I said. Lazal nearly choked on his honey water. Naruhito, your manners? Let him be, Lazal. This one's my job. I kept my eyes on her. You've already researched us. Lazal's personality, my situation, all of it. You walked in here with the game already won, so skip the pleasantries. What are you buying, and what's the price? Her eyes opened, just a crack. Behind those perfect lids, dark purple irises caught the candlelight. How unpleasant, she said, right back at you. Something passed between us in that moment. Not hostility, not respect, exactly. Something uglier and more honest than either. I looked at this woman, Int 28, the most dangerously intelligent person I'd met in either world, and I saw myself. Not the same goals, not the same methods, but the same fundamental rot. Two people who'd spent their entire lives using their brains to survive environments that wanted them dead. We were both thinking exactly the same thing. This person's personality is the absolute worst. No friends. Definitely no lover. We laughed at the same time. Ha 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 ha. Both of us lifted our silver cups at the same instant and drank. Lazal stared at us like we'd lost our minds. The cat nun's ears flattened. The little priestess, Suvi, tugged at her own sleeve nervously. The negotiation began. Two poisonous creatures, smiling, waiting to see who bit first. We didn't get far. Nobody move. Official business of the Angel Church Night Order. The door exploded inward. Silver armor, drawn swords, and a sweating muscle-bound baron who smelled like he'd run here in full plate. 10 knights poured into the room, blades pointed at me and Lazal. Ah? Canosa and I said it simultaneously. I noticed we'd both developed the same vein on our temples. She handled the knights with one command. The Grand Bishop's decree cost her a month of lifespan. The lesser knights dropped like puppets. The Baron was too strong for it, raving about honor and traitors, while Canosa's expression settled into the specific exhaustion of being the smartest person in a room full of idiots. His second, a masked knight called Brena, moved before I could react. My right arm went cold, then light, then absent, cut clean at the elbow. Nice arm. Brenna purred through her crying face mask. Good muscle tone, no blood, no pain. Her relic controlled when the damage hit. The Baron punched me across the room. Brena pinned Lazal. Canosa's eyes narrowed to violet slits, and then a pale woman appeared on the floor. She was drinking my blood, not metaphorically, literally, on the carpet, on her back, lapping up the blood from my severed arm with absolute bliss. Porcelain skin flushing pink, making sounds that belonged in a very different context. What exquisite vintage, she murmured. So fermented? What history this species must carry? There's a pervert, I screamed. Lazal, a pervert grew out of the carpet. Before anyone could process that, she caught my severed arm, pressed it to the stump, and healed it. Flesh knitting, bone fusing, a century of medicine in 2 seconds. Then she wiped my blood off her lips and said, I know your body well, after all. She said that 3 times, each repetition worse than the last. Her name was Ai, the knowledge dragon, and she'd been waiting for me, not waiting like Alice. Possessive, biological, a mate bond forged in combat. Ai's fixation was inherited. Every predecessor knowledge dragon had fallen for the same man across different timelines, failed, died, and passed the obsession forward. Ai carried the accumulated love of every version of herself that had ever existed. Was that real? Could you call it love if it was never originally yours? Alice arrived 30 seconds later. 2 dragons, same room, both claiming me. Alice's golden hair was streaked with Ai's black slime. Ai's robe was singed. They faced each other with murder in their eyes. Your hair looks better with the slime, I said sweetly. Remove yourself from my friend, Alice replied, voice dropping to the register that meant someone was about to become a scorch mark. 2 dragons about to fight in the Angel Church. Collateral damage measured in city blocks. I did the only thing I could think of. Alice, Ai. I called them by name. Both dragons froze. Tails materialized and went rigid. Identical expressions of stunned vulnerability. Don't fight here, I said. Please, Not here. Alice stammered and looked away. I whispered, yes, understood, and went still. They left through spatial distortions, presumably to murder each other somewhere that wasn't a church. He sweet-talked. Dragons, Suvi whispered. Don't trust men like that, the cat nun agreed, ears flat. Canosa reset her expression and turned back to me as if nothing had happened. Shall we continue? We negotiated for another hour. She needed me politically. I needed her protection practically. I take the title of Inquisitor, her personal troubleshooter, but operate independently. You won't work under me? She asked. You're the boss, but we have other things to build. A bakery, for starters. She laughed. A real laugh, not the manufactured kind. A bakery. The Dragon Slayer wants to open a bakery. Bread's honest work. You are the most confusing man I have ever met. That night, Alice shared bananas with me in the church carriage. She peeled them carefully, handed them over without a word. The silence was comfortable. After the day I'd had, comfortable silence was worth more than gold. When sleep came, it came fast, and it brought me somewhere I'd never been. A library, firelight, the smell of bread, which made no sense. Ah, you're finally awake. Good morning, esteemed explorer. She emerged from the shadows between the bookshelves. Gray hair, red-framed glasses, a feathered hat, and a uniform I almost recognized. Her name was Harvey. She called herself the Knowledge Familiar, and this was her archive, built inside my mind, apparently, while I wasn't looking. Your archive? I looked around. Every shelf was stuffed with books. Why does it smell like a bakery? Her face crumbled. It was supposed to be Harvey's archive of distinguished documents, but you brought all that bread knowledge in, and now everything smells like yeast, she cried, full-on sobbing, glasses fogging, snot bubbling. One minute, she was this mysterious entity dwelling in my subconscious. The next, she was a wailing child who'd had her favorite toy ruined. I picked up a book, The History of Bread. Inside were references to Sumerian civilization, the Fertile Crescent, Earth history. In this world, that shouldn't have been possible. Before I could think about what that meant, Harvey stopped crying and started sniffing me. Her eyes changed. Her teeth grew. Bat wings erupted from her back. She chased me through the bread-scented bookshelves, with drool streaming down her chin, babbling about how delicious I smelled. Something else lived inside Harvey, something older, something that drank blood and called itself a creature of the night. I barely got away, and only because Kiri intervened. Kiri Yaiba, my weapon. It moved on its own. Fog erupted from the blade, thick and choking, and physically dragged me out of the archive like a bouncer ejecting a drunk. I tumbled out onto a lakeside. Dawn light, mist on the water, cold air that tasted like the future I'd been fighting for. And there, fishing with a rod the size of a telephone pole, sat a giant, 4 meters tall, Shinto priest robes, muscles that made the Baron look like a child's drawing, and a paper talisman covering his entire face. I am Kiri, he said. Kiri Yaiba, that is the name I should give you. Foy, my weapon had a soul, not just Taro's lingering warmth, but something ancient and vast and sealed behind that talisman, for reasons I wasn't sure I wanted to understand. He fed me grilled catfish with salt and pepper. It was the best thing I'd eaten in this world. I didn't know what he was. I didn't know what Harvey was. But my inner world existed now. A lake, an archive, a sealed giant, and something told me I'd be coming back. Kiri ejected me from the dream before I could ask more questions. The blade had its own will. For the first time, I wasn't sure if that made it a partner or a threat. I woke up to reality. Days passed. We hunted snakes, sold materials to Dramola's trading company, and Stahl, my former enemy, now my reluctant teammate, joined us for hunts. She was absurdly strong, also absurdly stupid, but she tried hard, and that counted for something. On the 7th night, we ran an operation in the Red Light District, military call signs, Lazal's shadow magic for concealment, Stoll's night connections for access. The target, Bishop Canosa herself, sneaking out for a night of gambling at an exclusive establishment while her attendants thought she was sleeping. We needed leverage. Specifically, we needed her to approve our entry into the upcoming Dragon Festival, the only shortcut to getting a shop license for the bakery. The deadline had already passed. Normal channels were closed, so I did what any reasonable person would do. I pulled out my smartphone, recovered from a dwarf workshop earlier that week, solar battery still functional, and invented paparazzi. Operation Bunshun Cannon, I announced. That name is somehow worse than the plan itself, Lazal said, but the operation hit a snag I hadn't anticipated. Inside the high-class establishment, we split up up to gather information. Lazal, Stoll, and I each had 1 hour to make contacts. Lazal returned with 2 beautiful women hanging off his arms, the owner of the establishment and her younger sister, both smitten. The entire room was staring. Stoll returned, carried on a throne by 4 handsome men who described her existence as a fetish. I returned with nothing. 15 attempts, 15 rejections. Every woman I'd spoken to had found an excuse to leave within 30 seconds. Yep, figured this would happen, Stoll said from her throne. Lazal looked at me with genuine confusion. You're alone? But you, Lazal. I grabbed his shoulders, looked him dead in the eyes. Don't outshine me so casually, please. That's all I ask. Are you genuinely saying that out loud right now? But between the comedy and the humiliation, there was a moment that mattered. Before we'd split up, Lazal had hesitated, his tail curled in tight. He said the words I'd been waiting to hear, even though I hadn't known I was waiting. This approach, I won't be much help. Lizardonians aren't exactly welcomed in places like this. The discrimination was real. I'd seen it every day since we arrived. The stares, the muttered slurs, the shopkeepers who suddenly had nothing in stock. Lazal had carried it without complaining, but in a place like this, surrounded by wealth and beauty and social currency, he couldn't hide behind combat skill or shadow magic. Doesn't matter, I said. 2 words. I didn't give a speech. I didn't acknowledge the injustice or promise to change the world. I just told him it didn't matter, because it didn't. Not to me. His tail uncurled, slowly. Your species and who you are have nothing to do with each other. There are at least 2 people here who know you're worth something. That enough for you? I pointed at myself, then at Stoll. She threw a peace sign without looking up. Your turn comes later, I said. When the bakery opens, that's where you shine. For now, let the pretty faces handle the socializing. Yeah? You just stay ready, boss. He didn't say anything for a while. Then his reptilian eyes softened into something I'd only seen once before. On the night he'd told me our first day in Agatra was the best day of his life. Understood, Naruhito. The mission continued. We got what we needed. Kenosa's nightlife, captured in high definition on a device this world had no concept of. Leverage secured. But that's a story for next time. What mattered, what I kept turning over in my head as we walked back through the lamplit streets, was simpler than schemes or dragons or ancient spirits in my skull. 2 people who knew Lazal was worth something. That was enough. For now, that was enough. The days after the Kenosa deal blurred into a rhythm. Hunt snakes in the morning, feed the kids at noon, argue with Stoll about who gets the last sausage, plan the dragon festival at night. Lather, rinse, repeat. Routine. The kind that makes you forget this world wants you dead. I was juggling 3 identities at once. Church Inquisitor, Snake Exterminator, aspiring pizza mogul, and somehow none of them had blown up in my face yet. Rita was learning multiplication. Nico had stopped flinching when strangers walked past. Lazal's bread experiments were actually getting good. Even Stoll had settled into something resembling a functional team member, as long as you defined functional loosely enough to include breaking people's fingers. It was fine. Everything was fine. I should have known better. In my experience, fine is just the sound the universe makes before it clears its throat. It started at the Dragon Embassy. I'd been summoned, and in this world, when a dragon summons you, the only polite response is showing up and hoping your limbs stay attached. The main hall was the size of a concert venue. Golden light pouring through windows, tall enough for a truck to drive through. Alice sat on one end of the room, arms crossed, radiating the specific brand of fury reserved for roommates who've crossed a line. On the other end, lounging across a chaise longue like she'd claimed it through eminent domain, was Ai, the knowledge dragon. Silver hair, black hole eyes, that smile that made my spine itch. They'd been fighting again. I could tell because the air tasted like ozone, the curtains were smoldering, and 3 maids had reportedly fainted from the pressure of 2 dragons being angry in the same room. Naruhito, Alice said. Sit. Hard pass on whatever this is. Sit. I sat. A notification pinged in my vision. Speech challenge activated. Objective. Calm 2 bickering dragons. Sure, let me just add that to the resume between bakery planner and inquisitor for a church I don't believe in. The argument was about me, which made it infinitely worse. Ai had been using her water mirror spell, a surveillance technique she'd invented to watch me from Alice's bedroom 3 times a day, minimum, and Alice had caught her reading her diary aloud to an empty room. Dragon tears had already been shed. The misunderstanding from the red light district, where they'd both seen me through the mirror saying, I need that woman and nothing else matters, while I was talking about my bakery plans, was still festering. They wanted me to settle it. I tried to be diplomatic, tried to explain the miscommunication. That failed. I tried humor. That failed harder. Then I said something I shouldn't have. The tongue that enraptures kicked in. Or maybe it was just exhaustion burning through my filters. I told them they were fighting over something that wouldn't last, that I'd be dead in a few decades, while they'd still be here, nursing a grudge about an argument that never mattered. I told them the thing they were actually afraid of wasn't losing to each other. It was the possibility that the tiny human they'd fixated on might simply not choose anyone, that I might die on some hunt next Tuesday, and neither of them would have been chosen or rejected, just left behind, like everyone gets left behind eventually. 2 drops hit the floor, clink, clink. Dragon tears crystallize in open air. They hit the marble like dropped earrings, translucent, beautiful, and utterly devastating, both of them crying, silent, faces perfectly still, tears rolling down cheekbones that hadn't known vulnerability in centuries. The onlookers in the hall stopped breathing. Madame Hiroto gave me a look that could curdle milk. Someone whispered, "He made them cry." The notification flashed red. Speech challenge failed. Making 2 apex predators weep in public was, apparently, the wrong answer. But something had cracked open, something beneath all that power and posturing. For one terrible moment, they weren't dragons. They were just lonely. The same loneliness I saw in bathroom mirrors at 3 in the morning back when I was an explorer. And the only thing waiting for me at home was a microwave meal and silence. I spent the next hour apologizing. Hiroto explained the actual situation, jealousy, not politics, and I felt like the dumbest man in 2 worlds. The crystallized tears scattered on the marble floor kept catching the light, and every glint felt like an accusation. I left the embassy that night knowing 2 things. 1, I owed Alice a proper outing, as promised. The contract she'd made me sign, the one written on wax-sealed parchment in First Civilization script, promising to take her on a friend date before seeing any other women. I'd been treating it as a joke. Her tears told me she hadn't been. 2, whatever I felt for me had nothing to do with friendship. The words she'd used, the way she'd talked about wanting me to see only her, whisper only to her, wanting something different from friendship, that was older and darker than affection. That was a dragon who knew exactly what love was, and had decided to aim it at someone who couldn't love her back. Not wouldn't, couldn't. Whatever Naza Sena had done to me in my past life, whatever that woman had carved out of my ability to feel romantic attachment, I was knocking on a door that had been sealed from the inside. The crystallized tears were still on the floor when I left. Someone would sweep them up eventually. They'd be worth a fortune. Dragon tears always are. But nobody in that room would have dared to touch them. Far from Agatra, in a place I wouldn't learn about until much later, a different kind of scene was playing out. A throne room, a cheerful voice congratulating someone on a 6th consecutive success. The words were bright, musical, warm, the kind of warmth that has teeth hidden in it. A princess sat across from her brother, the crown prince. She called him dear brother. He called her a vixen. Between them, a silver table set with tea and pastries. One of the pastries was poisoned. They were taking turns eating. This was their version of a family gathering. Her name was Fortuna, 2nd princess of the kingdom, leader of a dragon-worshipping cult's coup, owner of a luck so extreme that reality bent around her like light around a black hole. Green hair pinned to the side, a face made for smiling, and the moral center of a tornado. When her champion, a red-haired immortal named Whis, had his skull caved in by a rock she'd casually dropped from the ceiling, he stood back up, brain matter on the carpet. "Ow," he said. "Clean up your own mess," she replied. The prince had a secret weapon, light swords, inherited royal power, beautiful and lethal. He swung at Fortuna. He hit the wrong people. Her luck redirected his attack into his own captive supporters, and she watched them die with what I can only describe as thoughtful interest. "How wonderful," she said, clapping softly. I didn't know any of this was happening, but Fortuna was already a gravitational force, bending events from a kingdom away. Her twin sister was about to change my life. There's a story I need to tell that I only pieced together later, one that happened in the belly of a dying serpent, in a place I'd never been. A girl was dissolving. She'd been a princess once. Torina, Fortuna's twin, the one who fled, who lost her retainer, who was used and sold and thrown away by every hand that touched her. When the Titanosmea found her in the wilderness, she was already half dead. The serpent that swallowed her was dying too, wounded by hunters. By me, probably. I'd been killing their kind for weeks, happily collecting bounties and selling materials through Dramola trading. Good business, clean profit. Inside that serpent's body, something happened that shouldn't have been possible. Royal blood mixed with animal despair. 2 dying things reached for each other and fused. Scales grew over human skin. The serpent's memories flooded a princess's mind. Every hunt, every death, Every time a black-haired man with a broken blade had walked into their territory and left it emptier. Not human, she whispered, not snake. The merge completed. I am revenge. Fortuna's last words to her echoed somewhere in the dissolution. Live freely, she did. Freely, and with a very specific list of grievances, topped by a name she'd learned from 100 dying serpents' memories. Toyama Naruhito, the winter that killed their kind. The monsters I'd been hunting for beer money now had a human commander, a princess, a strategist who could taste every serpent I'd slaughtered and wanted the bill paid in full. That same week, I fell asleep and ended up in my head again. The bread archive was warm. Harvey had laid out a meeting space by the fireplace, armchairs, manuscripts, tea. I refused to drink because every beverage she offered was a potential gateway to neck biting. First official brain meeting, she announced. Agenda, Dragon Festival bakery operations. Item 1, you trying to suck my blood. That's item 3, actually. I'm nothing if not organized. We got work done. Mapped pizza dough ratios from the archive's collected knowledge of 18 centuries of flatbread evolution. Argued over tomato sourcing. Debated whether Lazal could build a brick oven from local materials or if we'd need those thieving dwarves. The kind of productive meeting I'd never once had in modern Japan, and it was happening inside my subconscious with a vampire librarian. Then I found the door. It was hidden behind bookshelves in the deepest corner, half buried in shadow. Round edges, no sharp corners. A handle that looked designed by someone who'd never seen a door before. The second I touched it, something in my chest seized. Not pain, but longing, like hearing a lullaby from a room you can't find. I reached for the handle without thinking. Don't open that, the Ofuda macho. He materialized behind me like a bad dream you can't shake. Shrine priest robes barely containing a body built for professional wrestling, an Ofuda talisman plastered across his entire face, inscribed with ancient characters that occasionally moved. He told me, in his roundabout cryptic way, that the door led to something sealed, something my own mind was hiding. The fog, the lake, the door, all connected, all off limits. Your heart hid it for a reason, he said. Don't dig up what's buried until you're ready to hold it. I let it go, not because I trusted him. I'd already caught him trying to eat souls behind my back, but because the daily life outside the dream needed me more. Yudo, the tower-class adventurer, had verified my honesty with his lie-detecting skill. Catch in the rye. I'd passed. Everything I'd told him was true. He told his crew afterward, I'd rather fight the ancient serpent than that man. Meanwhile, on the surface, things were ordinary. I was buying tomatoes at the market, teaching Rita to count past 100, watching Pello carry Shiro on his back through the food stalls, while Nico lectured a merchant about overcharging. Stoll was eating her 5th sausage in silence, looking unbothered and terrifying. Small, ordinary things, the kind that don't look important until someone tries to take them from you. I'd killed for these people already. The adventurers who'd threatened Nico at the market. I'd slaughtered them in their sleep, let Kiriyaiba shred their souls, and felt the backlash of consuming their dying memories. That weight was still in me. The farm boy who'd lost everything to his older brother. The man who just wanted to feed his family. I'd killed them because they were threats, and I'd do it again, and I knew what that made me. But standing in the market, watching Pello hand Shiro a piece of bread, watching Rita count change with his brow furrowed in concentration, the math still worked out. Whatever I was becoming, this was worth it. The serpents came for us on a clear afternoon. We'd been hunting boar on the plains, me as bait, Lazal's shadow traps, Stoll's speed for the finishing blow. Clean, efficient, almost boring. Then, Lazal stopped moving. His eyes rolled white. His tail went rigid. A skill had hit him. Oh, good one. Know my tragedy. A psychic lure targeting anyone with genuine goodness in their heart. It reached into his compassion, his empathy, hooked into that insufferable kindness that made Lazal, and dragged him under. She's calling me, he whispered. Such a sad voice. Then he dropped into his own shadow and vanished. The good-hearted fool had been snatched by something that hunted kindness itself. Stoll and I tracked him, through trees with bark stripped in coiling serpent patterns, past soil wet for no reason, into silence where birds should have been singing but weren't because everything alive had fled. We found the serpents, a carpet of them, a living wall of scales, hissing warnings in unison. Their mistress was weeping, they said. Only the good could approach. The wicked must stay away. I listened, nodded, smiled, and while they preached about their tragic princess, I was spreading Kiri's fog at ankle height, thin as breath, invisible in the underbrush. Thank you for the warning, I said. Meant it too. They'd been kind enough to stall. Kill them, Kiriyaiba. Stoll handled the survivors. We pushed deeper. Then I was alone. Stoll had gotten Lazal out. She'd found him catatonic in a clearing, wrapped in shadow, whispering apologies to someone who wasn't there. I'd ordered her to run while I drew the swarm. She refused. I used the one word that worked. That's an order from your Inquisitor. Her face when she left. I'll remember that for a while. The look of someone being forced to survive against their will. The big dog told to stay. Stupid, maybe. But Lazal was the priority. The bakery needed a baker more than it needed a guy who was good at dying. The Titanosmea came. Dozens. Plus a white-scaled woman growing from the largest serpent's mouth. Tarina's consciousness driving the horde. Black eyes, wet scales, a voice like a child drowning. How does it feel? She asked. To die alone, like we did? Ask me in 10 minutes. Kiriyaiba, full output. No reservation, no conservation, no learning from past mistakes. Actually, this was the lesson from past mistakes. In the modern dungeon, I'd held back and died. Not again. Never again. The fog poured out of me. Extreme output. My own body was taking damage. Nausea, bleeding gums, muscle spasms. Every serpent within range bled from invisible cuts. I climbed their bodies and drove my spear through skulls one at a time, counting kills allowed to keep myself sane. 2, 3, 4. But they didn't stay dead. Their scales regenerated. A feed skill, undying scales, linked to the white serpent. Kill her or fight forever. The relic backlash hit like a truck. I was vomiting between kills, hands shaking so badly I nearly dropped my spear, vision blurring, body temperature dropping. This was what dying felt like. I recognized it from last time. Then the Ofuda Macho spoke, not from a dream, from inside my chest. Use it. Festival music filled my skull. Ohayashi drums, shrine bells, summer festival sounds from a childhood I could barely remember. Words I'd never learned spilled from my mouth. Ancient Japanese, some kind of prayer or invocation. Syllables that tasted like incense and cold mountain water. Expanded interpretation, Kiriyaiba responded. The fog thickened, swelled, and from within it, shapes, people, serpents. Every soul Kiriyaiba had ever consumed rose out of the white mist in bodies made of fog. The thugs from the slums, the adventurers from the market, the serpents I'd already killed, all of them standing behind me, weapons in foggy hands. I pointed at the swarm. Kill! The dead fought the undying. Fog soldiers riding fog serpents crashed into Torina's army. Festival music pounded in my ears as white phantoms tore into black-scaled monsters. It was beautiful. It was horrible. I stood in the center, grinning like something that had forgotten how to be human, feeling nothing but cold, transcendent clarity. The white serpent screamed. The swarm shattered. I collapsed face first into blood-soaked earth. The festival music faded. The fog settled. I was unconscious before I hit the ground. What happened next? I learned in pieces. From Yuto, from inference, from a note left on my nightstand. A woman arrived on the wind. Silver hair, silver eyes. Wenfilbana, the elf from the beginning. The one who'd given me an amulet I'd nearly forgotten about. She'd felt it activate. Dragon Slayer, she said, kneeling beside me. We keep meeting like this. She read the wind. The wind told her everything. The soul storage, the ghost army, the expanded interpretation. Something she'd been searching for across centuries was suddenly lying unconscious at her feet. She started laughing. Then she tried to take me. Yuto, who she'd originally come to rescue, blocked her path. Machete drawn, dead of honor. That man saved our lives, he said. I'm not letting you walk off with him. She nearly killed him for it. Would have, probably. But then I showed up. The knowledge dragon, in a brown sweater and boots. She'd been watching my entire fight through her water mirror, taking notes, experiencing emotions I'd rather not describe. She walked through the forest like she was crossing a coffee shop, stopped in front of Wenfilbana, and said, "You're too close to him. I can smell you. Move." Wenfilbana left, not from fear, from calculation. Fighting a dragon over an unconscious man in a corpse-filled forest wasn't a winning scenario, even for a legend. I stayed. She sat in that killing field and pulled my head onto her lap. And according to Yuto, before she teleported him and his team to safety, the knowledge dragon spent an unknowable amount of time cataloging every woman she considered a rival. Alice, Wenfilbana, Stoll, the innkeeper's daughter, some girl I'd apparently bought tomatoes from. She bit her own thumb until it bled. Dragon blood, black and thick, dripping onto the soil. No one, she whispered, will alter the trajectory of his life. No one but me. Not protective, possessive. There's a canyon between those two things, and the knowledge dragon was building a palace at the bottom of it. I slept through everything. The battle, the legendary standoff, the dragon's vigil over my body while she cataloged threats and bled from self-inflicted wounds. I just slept. When I woke up at the inn, the shaking in my hands lasted 3 hours. There was a note on the nightstand in handwriting I didn't recognize. You drool in your sleep. Cute. Also terrifying, because it meant she'd been close enough to watch me breathe. The Serpent Army was broken, but Tarina was still out there. The Ofuda Macho's power had nearly killed me to activate. The forbidden door in my dreamscape was still sealed, hiding something my own mind didn't want me to find. And somewhere in the dark, the Knowledge Dragon was updating her list of rivals with the methodical precision of someone who had all of eternity to be thorough. I sat on the edge of my bed, flexing fingers that refused to stop trembling. My body remembered the expanded interpretation even if my conscious mind was still processing it. Festival music, ghost soldiers, a power that used the dead as currency. The Ofuda Macho's gift wasn't free. Nothing in this world was free. Outside my window, the sun was setting over Agatra. Somewhere out there, a serpent princess was licking her wounds and planning her next move. A legendary elf was nursing an obsession with my soul. A knowledge dragon was memorizing the face of every woman I'd spoken to this month. And in the dream behind my eyes, a door with no sharp corners was waiting to be opened. The comfortable part of this adventure was over. I know how my story ends, not the details, the shape of it, the arc, the part where the fire comes, warm and final, and I let it. I've been carrying someone on my back for a long time. Centuries of someone else's memories say so, even if this body hasn't. The weight is real though. This warmth pressed against my spine, this slow breathing, this fragile pulse, all of it real, all of it borrowed time. I hum a song I don't remember learning, something about rabbits on a hillside, about fishing in a stream. The melody doesn't belong to this world. It belongs to his. He's asleep. Of course he's asleep. He always pushes until he breaks, and then he sleeps like the dead, trusting the world not to kill him for 8 hours. Trusting me. I know how my story ends. I know whose back I'll be carrying him on when it does, and that's fine. This feeling in my chest, this impossible, inherited, illegitimate warmth is mine, even if 100 versions of me felt it first, even if it was engineered by a spell no sane creature would have invented. It's mine now, and I will hold it until the fire comes. I woke up in a house I barely recognized, not because I'd moved. I'd been there 4 days, but every time I opened my eyes, it took a second to accept that this was real. The dark wood floors polished to a mirror shine, the hand-carved furniture, the courtyard visible through proper glass windows, not the oil paper kind from the inn. Canosa's rental property, a 3-story townhouse in the commercial district, complete with a courtyard, a dwarf-built stone bread oven, and guards posted at the gate. The monthly rent was 3 gold coins, which was highway robbery, but the bread oven alone was worth it. My hands were still trembling, 4 days since the expanded interpretation activation, and my fingers hadn't fully steadied. I could grip a sword, I could hold a mug, but the fine tremor was there, constant, like a tuning fork someone had struck and forgotten about. The kids were already up. I could hear Nico bossing Rita around in the kitchen, something about which shelf the flour went on. Pello and Shiro were a quiet presence in the background, the baby babbling, the older boy answering in his dreamy way. Lazal's voice carried from the courtyard, deep, calm, talking to the stone oven like it was a horse he was breaking in. Stoll was gone, morning patrol with the church knights, the one obligation she couldn't dodge. She'd be back by noon with groceries and complaints. I lay there for a minute, staring at the ceiling. Nice ceiling. No water stains, no cobwebs, no centipedes. Living conditions had improved roughly 800% since arrival. Get up, I told myself. You've got a bakery to build. Alice came at 11. I'd sent the letter 3 days ago. Ancient script on good parchment, sealed with the church's wax stamp because I didn't have one of my own. The letter itself was nothing special, an invitation. Come see the new house. Come taste the bread. Come because I promised you a friend date, and I'm a man who keeps his word. I'd written it in the old language because she could read it, and because I knew she'd get a kick out of it. The dragons loved that ancient script the way old professors loved Latin. It made them feel seen. She arrived in a white-hooded one-piece dress and short pants. Her appearance shifted younger through some dragon magic I didn't understand. Looked about 16, maybe 17. The golden hair still reached her waist. The scarred eye was still sealed shut, but everything else was softer, rounder cheeks, smaller frame, the kind of face that made shopkeepers smile instead of drop to their knees. Not bad, she said, scanning the entryway with those collector's eyes. She ran a finger along the doorframe, inspected the wood grain of the dining table, crouched, to examine the stitching on the carpet. Garen's silver in the chair legs, she murmured, and the carpet is from Blu-ray. The merchant bishop has taste. How do you know all that from looking? I am the collection dragon, Naruhito. I know what things are worth. She said it without arrogance, just fact. The way a sommelier says, this is a burgundy. Then Nico came barreling in, shouting, Ari, you came! And Alice's entire demeanor shifted. The appraiser vanished. What replaced her was something startlingly close to a grandmother seeing her favorite grandchild. Warm eyes, genuine smile, a hand reaching out to pat Nico's head. You've grown, Alice told her. Well done. You are alive and well, and that is no small thing. Who are you? Her grandma? I said. Dragon perspective, she said. To us, every living child is a small miracle. She meant it. I could hear it. This was the part of Alice that had nothing to do with power or pride. The part that looked at mortal life and found it genuinely precious. She'd never said it that plainly before. Nico grabbed Alice's hand and dragged her on a tour of the house. Alice let herself be dragged. The collection dragon, the being who could level city blocks with a sneeze, was being led around by an 11-year-old girl who wanted to show her the pantry. I watched from the doorway. Luca, who could see what Alice really was, who trembled every time the dragon looked at him, was slowly relaxing. Alice had noticed his fear the first time they'd met and had been careful ever since. She kept her distance from him, spoke softly when he was near. Once, she'd caught herself reaching toward him and pulled her hand back before it could scare him. She was trying, a dragon, trying not to scare a child. I hadn't told her to do that. She'd figured it out on her own. Your friend seems nice, Lazal said, appearing beside me with flour on his scales. For a being who could incinerate us all? She's growing, I said. Lazal blinked his reptilian eyes slowly. Aren't we all? Lazal brought out the bread. Hot dogs, fresh from the stone oven. The courtyard smelled like char and yeast, and a crude approximation of ketchup I'd been trying to perfect for 2 days. Alice didn't touch it immediately. She leaned in, nostrils flaring, one delicate sniff, and started talking. North Territory wheat, Namibob Hills, Graham family harvest. The yeast is beer malt derived, not divine fermentation. Interesting. She named the flour source, the supplier, the origin region, all from the smell. Collection dragon, I said. Indeed. Then she proposed something I hadn't expected. She wouldn't eat here. She wanted to judge the bread at the Dragon Festival, alongside everyone else. If it was meant to be a public product, it should be evaluated publicly. But she wasn't done. Naruhito, she said, eyes fixed on the table, voice carefully casual. This city's central district has lovely waterways. The season is right for river walks. The market food stalls are educational for someone planning a festival booth. I blinked. Also, she continued, still not looking at me, the sunlight is pleasant, and I happen to have excellent taste in ingredients. If one were to, hypothetically, need a food consultant, I looked at Lazal. Lazal looked at Stoll. Stoll looked at the ceiling. Dorazi, I said, are you asking me to take you to the market? I am stating facts about the city's amenities, she said, the tips of her ears turning pink. Whether you act on those facts is your business. We went to the market. The blue sky market was chaos in the best way. Vendors shouting over each other. The smell of grilled meat and hot sugar and leather polish all tangled together. Stalls overflowing with monster hide wallets, hand-blown glass, imported furniture, dubious potions. Alice walked through it like she owned the place, which, technically, as the city's patron dragon, she sort of did. Every vendor went silent when she passed. The shopkeepers forgot their sales pitches mid-sentence, mouths hanging open. One woman tried to sell her a fake gold bracelet. Alice identified it as brass-plated in under 2 seconds, smiled, and said, I won't report you. You never claimed it was real. The woman sat down on the ground, just gave up standing. Harsh, I said. Merciful, Alice corrected. A less patient dragon would have melted her stall. We walked side by side through the white-walled streets, the distance between our shoulders fluctuating, 5 fists apart, then 4, then 5 again. She pointed out architectural details I'd never have noticed. I pointed out food stalls she'd never have tried. She bought nothing. I bought everything. Women on the street whispered as we passed. They saw a girl from a noble family and her sharp-eyed bodyguard. One of them said my eyes looked absolutely focused. Another said Alice's blue eyes were like gemstones. Neither description was wrong exactly. Fufu, they think you are my protector? Alice said. I'd say it's the other way around. Ha, as if you need protecting. She paused, corrected herself, quietly. Well, perhaps sometimes. That was new. Alice admitting I might need help. 6 weeks ago, she'd have said it with contempt. Now it came with something else. Something soft and worried that she probably didn't have a name for. At Dramola's associate Bisway's riverside stall, we bought 2 fishing rods and sat on the dock. Alice caught 6. I caught 0. She was insufferable about it. Perhaps your bait technique requires consultation, she said. Shut up. From an expert in fishing, which I am. You're a dragon. The fish are surrendering. Fufu, jealousy is unbecoming, Naruhito. But her face, that face, it was the softest I'd ever seen it. Not the haughty dragon, not the lonely collector, just a girl on a dock, holding a fishing rod, genuinely pleased that someone had asked her to come along. I pulled out a scrap of parchment I'd been carrying, wrote 3 lines in ancient script, handed it to her. She read it. Her ears went red. This is, you wrote this? Don't make a big deal out of it. You wrote me a letter in the old language. Again, it's 3 sentences. Doraza. It says, thank you for coming today. The bread will be ready at the festival, and I'm glad we're friends. She folded it carefully, tucked it into her sleeve, didn't say anything for a long time. When she finally spoke, it was quiet enough that the river almost swallowed it. I am glad too, Naruhito. That was the peak, that quiet moment on the dock, the river running clear beneath us, a folded letter in a dragon's sleeve, and the sun going down behind the white rooftops. She'd started this relationship by trying to kill me. I'd started it by driving a blade through her chest. We'd bargained, insulted each other, made a contract that was half joke and half desperate loneliness. And now she was tucking a handwritten letter into her sleeve, like it was the most valuable thing in her collection. Everything I'd been working toward, the house, the bakery, the crew, the life, it all felt possible, tangible, like maybe this world would let me keep it. It lasted until sundown. We were walking back through the central district when Alice stopped mid-step. Not a casual pause, a full stop, like someone had grabbed her spine. Dorazi? Her face was white, not pale, white. The blood had left her cheek so fast I thought she might collapse. Naruhito? Her voice was different, lower. The playful girl from the dock was gone. What spoke now was the thing behind the girl. Old, vast, predatory. What are you? What? Something changed. Inside you. Your composition, it's different from this morning. She stepped closer. The air thinned. That subtle pressure that made normal people's knees buckle. She wasn't controlling it. It was leaking. What did you do? She asked. What did that power do to you? I didn't know what she was talking about. Or rather, I suspected, but I didn't have words for it. The expanded interpretation, the Ofuda Macho's gift, Kiriyaiba's evolution. Something in my inner world had shifted during the serpent battle, and I'd been too busy recovering to notice. Alice could smell it. Dragons sense spiritual composition the way sharks sense blood, instinctively, inevitably, and with the kind of alarm that means danger. You're breaking, she said. No, changing. Something is changing inside you, and it isn't human. Dorothy, I'm fine. My hands are just, your hands have nothing to do with it. Her voice cracked. The first time I'd ever heard it do that. Naruhito, I can see it. Something that shouldn't be there is growing, like a scent that's changed, like an egg about to hatch. The warmth of the day collapsed. That golden afternoon, the dock, the letter, the fishing, it all felt suddenly fragile, like looking at a photograph of something already gone. We need answers, I said. My voice sounded steadier than I felt. Inside, something was screaming, the same animal alarm that had fired during the serpent battle, during the stole fight, during every moment in this world where the ground had shifted beneath me. But this time, the ground hadn't shifted beneath me. It had shifted inside me. The embassy, Alice said. Now. The embassy protocols would take weeks to, not through protocols. I mean now. She grabbed my wrist. Her hand was hot, dragon blood hot, the kind of heat that seeps through skin and settles in bone. Naruhito, I am not asking. Whatever is happening, the archives will know, and I will not wait while something eats you from the inside. There it was, under the authority, under the dragon command, the raw thing she couldn't hide. Fear, a dragon afraid for a human, the same being who'd told me mortals were beautiful because they ended, now terrified that this particular mortal might be ending wrong. We didn't go alone. Back at the house, I gathered the team. Stole, Kanosa, Suvi, and somehow, because the universe has a sense of humor that borders on the sadistic, the knowledge dragon, I had left a note on my kitchen table, written in ink that smelled like nightshade. I know what's happening to you. Come to the embassy tonight. Bring the bishop. She'll need a carriage. Kanosa read the note, said a word that would get her excommunicated, and ordered Suvi to prep the war horses. We're going to storm the dragon embassy, Kanosa announced, pulling on her black cape with the energy of a general mounting a siege, with full military commitment to deliver an apology. That's not how apologies usually work, I said. Nothing about you works usually, Toyama Naruhito. Tonight we go loud. She wasn't wrong. The embassy visit was technically about returning Stoll's borrowed knight authority to Alice's domain, a diplomatic formality. But under that cover, we needed answers about what was happening inside me, and the embassy's dragon archives were the only source fast enough. Suvi drove. The war horses were church-bred, pedigree stock that ran like missiles. The open carriage tore through the night streets and up the hill road toward the embassy. Canosa's white hair streaming behind her, Stoll leaning forward with her hands on the reins, and me gripping the railing, trying not to think about the last time I'd been on this road. Halfway up the Kiki-lined approach, the horses stopped dead. No warning, just locked knees and terrified snorting. "Good evening," said a voice from the darkness. Bernald Odonius, Alice's butler, the demon of the Great War, standing in the middle of the road with a lantern, wearing his immaculate tailcoat, smiling like a grandfather welcoming guests for dinner. The difference was that this grandfather could punch through castle walls. "Ah, the church delegation. How delightful. I was told you might come." He adjusted his monocle. "The approach road is, regrettably, closed." Canosa stood up in the carriage, knees shaking, voice not. "Bernald Odonius," she said, "servant of the collection dragon. I am Bishop Canosa Tailfield of the Angel Church, and I invoke the right of diplomatic entreaty under Article 7 of the Dragon-Human Accords. We seek audience with the collection dragon on a matter of mutual concern. To impede this is to impede the accords themselves. Total bluff. The accord said nothing about nighttime invasions, but she delivered it with the authority of someone who'd been lying to powerful people since childhood. Bernal laughed, not a chuckle, a full body, head thrown back, moon-shaking laugh that scattered nightbirds from the kiki trees. "Magnificent!" he roared. "What gall! What brazen, beautiful nerve! Bishop, you should have been born in the age of the Great War. You'd have thrived." And then he attacked. One punch. The knowledge dragon, who'd been hovering invisibly above us, materialized a shield spell just in time. The 100-leaf shield, named after some ancient hero. Bernal's fist cracked it like glass. "Go," I said, flicking Bernal backward with a spell that sent him tumbling through the dark. "All of you. I'll hold the old man." I didn't argue. Stoll whipped the horses. We blew past the butler's position, into the embassy grounds, through a gauntlet of handsome butlers in training who called themselves the Alice Fan Club, and threw themselves at the carriage like action movie extras. They didn't stop us, because Kiri, had other plans. I didn't summon it. That's the part that matters. The fog came first, pouring from my belt, from the sheath where Kiriyaiba hung, a white mist that spilled across the embassy road like something breathing. The butlers in training froze, then scattered as shapes formed in the fog. Serpent bodies, coiling and striking, the manifested souls of every Titanus Mea I'd ever killed. Kiri's power, expanded interpretation, the souls stored inside the blade, given temporary flesh, but I hadn't called them. I hadn't activated the technique. I hadn't even thought about it. Kiri had done it alone. The blade hummed against my hip, a sound like a dog growling, low and protective, and completely independent of my will. The fog serpents cleared the road, pinning the butlers under coils of mist-made muscle, and the carriage tore through. "Naruhito," Stoll called from the driver's seat, her voice tight. "That power? You did that?" "No," I said. "Kiri did." Silence from the carriage. Even Canosa stopped talking. Kiri, Tyro, my dead best friend, soul fused with a blade, acting on its own, protecting me before I knew I needed protecting. The same instinct that made a dying puppy bite 4 bullies in an alleyway 20 years ago. That same love, expressed as violence, expressed as fog and teeth, and the grinding sound of a weapon deciding for itself. Is this still Taro? I thought, as the embassy gates opened before us, swung wide by the maid Ferran, who stood by the fountain with an expression that said she'd been expecting us all along. Or is Kiriyaiba becoming something else? The backlash hit as we crossed the threshold, a familiar price. Trembling hands, becoming trembling everything, my vision going white at the edges, the taste of copper flooding my mouth. The same cost as the serpent battle, smaller dose, but my body remembered and punished me for it. I didn't fall. I gripped the carriage rail, swallowed the blood, and watched the embassy doors open onto a torchlit corridor where Alice was already waiting. She was in her true form, not the girl from the market. The dragon, golden armor, flowing cape, trident in hand, one blazing blue eye fixed on me with an intensity that pinned me to the spot. "You came," she said. "You knew I would. I knew you would try. I wasn't sure you'd make it past Bernald." A pause. The faintest crack in the armor. "I'm glad you did." Behind her, deeper in the embassy, I could hear something stirring. Ancient mechanisms, archives opening, answers waiting. But that's a story for the next phase. For now, all I had was a dragon in full war regalia, a bishop who'd just committed an act of war as an apology, a blade that was learning to think for itself, and the certain knowledge that something inside me was changing into something that wasn't human. Also, my hands wouldn't stop shaking. Anyway, I woke in a classroom that hadn't existed for years. Summer heat, the smell of chalk and floor wax, cicadas screaming through open windows like they were running out of time. I was sitting at a desk in the back row, my desk, from high school. The wood grain under my fingers, the scratch marks I'd carved during second period, all of it real enough to make my chest ache. World 5 minutes ago hypothesis. You know it, right, Toyama? That voice. Lazy, musical, like a wind chime left on a summer porch. I knew that voice better than I wanted to admit. She was sitting on the desk in front of mine, legs swinging, a strawberry milk carton in one hand, black hair still damp from whatever she'd been doing, too careless to dry it. Sailor uniform, rumpled, cat-shaped almond eyes, the color of obsidian shot through with starlight. Kaiki Yusa, my high school classmate, the brilliant, insufferable, death-obsessed girl who'd spent 3 years making my life considerably more interesting than it had any right to be. "You've gotten old, Toyama," she said, poking my forehead, "and you smell like blood. This wasn't a dream." Kaiki explained it the way she explained everything. Too fast, too casual, with that infuriating smirk. The dimension we'd entered, the alternate world built from my memories, had used me as raw material. Every building, every person, every cicada was constructed from things I remembered. Kaiki herself was a copy, generated from my memories of the real Kaiki Yusa, except she'd figured it out. The moment adult me replaced high school me in this fake world, she'd understood everything. That she was a copy, that her world was a stage set, that her memories were borrowed goods. "Swamp man," she said, flicking water at the pool we'd somehow teleported to. "That's what I am. Every feeling, every memory, fabricated from your head. Sucks, right? You're still Kaiki," I told her. She laughed. It didn't reach her eyes. We found Doral on the school roof, my dragon, reduced to a golden-haired exchange student in a summer sailor uniform, crying because she couldn't reach her parents on the phone. She didn't remember being a dragon. She remembered being Ali Doral, transfer student, Kaiki's friend. I knelt in front of her, not because the moment called for it, but because she was shorter in this form, and I wanted her to see my eyes. I told her everything I'd never told her, that I was an obsessive fantasy nerd, that her armored form was the coolest thing I'd ever seen, that I got genuinely excited walking through the Adventurers Guild, that I wanted to build a sauna in our backyard, and study alchemy and try magic. All of it, every embarrassing, unfiltered piece of myself, I'd kept locked behind a mask of cool detachment. "This is me," I said. "The real me, the one I never showed you." She cried harder, but this time she was remembering. Golden light stirred around her, fragments of the dragon she was, answering my Kiriyaiba's call. "Your dragon was cool," I said. "I mean that." She went tomato red and started screaming about her tail. Apparently, manifesting it in front of her was some kind of indecent exposure. Kaiki watched from the wall with a look that could cut glass. Then, Kaiki dropped her mask. "Toyama, kill me." She said it the way she said everything, casually, like asking me to pass the salt, but her hands were shaking. She told us what she'd done. When adult me had appeared and broken the scripted scenario, the fake world started collapsing. The 1.2 million inhabitants, every person, every family, every child in this constructed city began to panic. They couldn't understand why their world was ending. They begged, they screamed, they clawed at nothing. Kaiki killed them all, every single one, in about 10 minutes. She was the lord of this world. She had that authority, and she used it because the alternative was worse, watching me have to do it. "I killed your friends, Toyama. The girls who liked you, the ones who watched you in class, all of them. They weren't going to accept being told they were fake, so I killed them before they could beg you to save them." Her voice cracked on the word beg, just for a second. "So I'm a monster now. Kill the monster, collapse the world, take Doral home. That's the only way out. The quest system confirmed it. Kill the lord of this world, and we could leave. Otherwise, trapped here forever, while something far worse stirred outside." Doral was trembling beside me, tears streaming. Kaiki's star-dark eyes were locked on mine, waiting for the sword. "The sauna I'm building is going to be Finnish style," I said, "with a proper loily." "What?" "The wood matters. I want pine walls, cedar benches, but the real dream is kilo. You know kilo? Trees that died standing 300 years ago in Finland. They cure in the wind and cold until the grain goes silver and the scent turns sweet. A sauna built from those trees. That's the pinnacle." Kaiki stared at me like I'd started speaking in tongues. "Then there's the stove. Wood burning, obviously. And a cypress cold plunge. I'll run water from the well, maybe tap into groundwater. The well water in the Empire runs about 14 degrees. In winter, it'll be even colder. My fingers will be numb when I walk in. My toes will feel like they're going to fall off. And then I'll open that little wooden door and the heat will hit me and the wood will smell like a forest and every frozen part of me will start thawing. I closed my eyes. I could see it. The small sauna cabin with smoke curling from its chimney, the morning light creeping through a tiny window, the gentle crackle of the stove. And right in the middle of that first session, right when I'm sinking into the warmth, right when the cold is leaving my body and I'm finally at peace, a thought will cross my mind. I opened my eyes and looked at Keiki. I killed Keiki. That thought, in my sauna. Noise. Unacceptable. She made a sound that wasn't quite a laugh and wasn't quite a sob. Every session after that, every loily, every cold plunge, every moment of perfect silence, that noise would be there. I killed Keiki, ruining everything, sitting in my head like a rock in my shoe for the rest of my life. Keiki's voice was barely a whisper. You're not going to kill me because of a sauna? I'm not going to kill you because your death would create intolerable noise in my relaxation. That's the pragmatic truth. My sauna, Keiki, my sanctuary. I will not allow guilt to contaminate it. The quest system screamed at me, kill the Lord, collapse the world, the only way out. I ignored it. You're Keiki, I said. The obnoxious speech patterns, the way you laugh when you're terrified, the thing where you tap your eyelids when you're thinking, the face that's annoyingly gorgeous despite the personality attached to it. All of it. I decided you're Keiki, that's that. She collapsed, not dramatically, just her legs gave out. She sank to the rooftop floor and covered her face with both hands. You absolute idiot, she choked out. You monumental, selfish, sauna-obsessed moron. Doral crossed the distance before I could move. She wrapped her arms around Keiki and held on. This golden-haired girl who didn't fully understand why she was crying, only that someone needed to be held. Keiki sobbed into Doral's shoulder. The sound was ugly and raw and real. The girl who'd wanted to die her entire life, who'd killed 1 million people to spare me the burden, was crying because a man refused to let her go over a bathing ritual. That was the most honest thing I'd ever done. The quest system pinged. An alternate route had opened. Keiki's survival had unlocked something the world's creator hadn't predicted. I didn't have time to celebrate. The quiet classmate from the back row stepped through the rooftop door. Fujito Miku, the girl who never spoke, who always watched, who'd been in every memory this world reconstructed. She raised her hand. A black stake materialized in it, something old and wrong, leaking shadow. She aimed at Doral. Keiki moved first. The stake punched through her stomach. Black veins spiderwebbed from the wound, and she staggered, but she stayed on her feet, standing between Fujito and Doral. Keiki, shut up, Toyama. Her voice was steady. Blood was running down her uniform. Crazy friends need to be stopped by their friends. That's the rule. Fujito's face split, not a smile, a crack, like a mask breaking. Underneath was someone I knew. Na, Kusakabe? 2 people. The quiet high school girl and the loud explorer. Fujito Miku and Kusakabe Hina. 2 masks worn by the same woman. She told me everything in a voice that was neither Fujito's silence nor Kusakabe's cheer. She'd been watching me since elementary school, manipulating my brain chemistry, wiping memories, causing what the quest system had labeled female luck hopeless. It was never a natural trait. She'd manufactured my inability to connect. She wanted me alone, pure, unchanging, a beautiful thing in a glass case. Her name was Naze Saina, and she was very, very old. You changed, she told me, and her voice broke with genuine grief. You were supposed to stay the same. One person, walking alone, needing nothing. That was beautiful, that was sacred, and now you're becoming something else. I had words for her, plenty of them, but Keiki was dying, and words wouldn't fix that. The lord of this false world, the girl made from my memories, stood bleeding between Naze and us. She turned to me. The starlight eyes were dimming. Thanks, Toyama, she said. It was fun. She pressed her forehead against mine. Her skin was cool. Good night. See you around, she smiled. The kind of smile that makes you understand why someone's face being good is the worst part. Keiki Yusa died standing up, between a dragon and a monster, having finally found something worth dying for. Doral's grief hit like a physical force. Dragon power, real, ancient, enormous, erupted from the golden-haired girl who'd been pretending to be a transfer student. The wave of golden fire obliterated Fujito's body in an instant, but what crawled out of the ashes wasn't human. Naza Sena stood revealed, a beautiful, terrible figure with a black spear in her hand. The Amanonuboko, the spear that stirred the sea of creation. She'd recreated a Japanese myth in her own flesh. Yomi no Okami, the goddess of the underworld, and she'd been inside my team, inside my school memories, inside my brain for most of my life. Everything I'd never been able to feel, every crush that fizzled, every connection that died before it started, every time I'd watched someone walk away and felt nothing, that was her. She'd stolen my capacity to love and called it protection. I'd been a puppet who thought he was free. She transformed the world. The school dissolved. The summer sky rotted. The ground beneath us became Yomi Hirasaka, the slope between the living world and the land of the dead. Her army boiled up from the earth, half-melted undead, grotesque and weeping, led by a massive divine female form, draped in black rusted armor, wielding the corroded Amanonuboko. The quest system delivered its verdict. You cannot win. Death is confirmed. I read that message. Then I read it again. I'll come back 1,500 times and kill you, I told her. Not bravado. Math. If each attempt taught me something, 1,500 tries ought to be enough. Then my Explorer terminal, the device from my old world, the one that shouldn't work here, crackled to life. Can you hear me? My name is Areta Ashfield. I knew that name. Everyone on Earth knew that name. The explorer who'd conquered the storm. The woman who'd become America's 52nd star. She'd tracked Naze Cena across dimensions. Her partner, Sophie M. Clark, had already poisoned the goddess with Gorgon's eye petrification before the fight began. And Areta herself punched through from the modern world's dungeon deep layer into this mythological hellscape, carrying the Storm Ruler, a power that commanded weather itself. Everything in this storm is on your side, Mr. Kiriyaiba, she said. So I fought a goddess alongside a living legend. Storm and mist merged. Her lightning carried my blades. My fog hijacked her gale. We ran through an army of the screaming dead, crushing undead by the thousands. And I was laughing, not because it was funny, but because the sheer absurdity of the situation had burned through every rational response I had left. I flirted with the goddess as a distraction, called her names, told her she looked tacky, sitting on a storm cloud like a throne. It worked exactly once, and that once was enough for Areta's lightning to crack her divine armor. Then I went inside. I let Neza Sena swallow me, seduced her with lies, told her I understood, told her she was right, told her I wanted to become what she envisioned. She believed it because she'd spent decades making sure I couldn't love anyone, and the idea that I'd chosen her was the only thing she'd ever wanted. Inside her divine body, I found what Areta's team had lost, their ordinary explorer, sealed alongside a skeleton samurai and a tiny kappa in a moonlit stream deep within the goddess's guts. I freed the seal. What came out was indescribable. A man whose head was made of ears. He laughed, ripped the goddess's head off, and tried to burrow inside her neck stump. The world collapsed. I fell into the underworld proper, a darkness made of reaching hands. Tens of thousands of vengeful spirits, each one trying to drag me down to join them. Then gold, a single point of gold in the black, falling toward me faster than I was falling away. 6 wings, 6 tails, scales that burned with their own light, blue eyes, ocean deep, sky-high blue. Doral, not the transfer student, not the polite girl in the sailor uniform, the dragon, the real one. She tore through the dead like they were paper, burned them off her body, bit through the arms that grabbed her neck, roared until the darkness itself recoiled. She caught me in her claws and climbed, straight up, through a tunnel of screaming spirits, their hands raking her scales, and she didn't care. She just flew, beating 6 wings against the weight of the entire underworld. We broke through, into light, into air, into silence. I was on her back, wind in my hair. Below us, the false world crumbled into nothing. You're cool, Doral, I whispered. I don't think she heard me. Darkness. Then a voice. Not Naza's, not Areta's. Something else entirely. Fate is changing, it said. Because of you. People who should have died are living. People who should never have changed are changing. You did that, Toyama Naruhito. I couldn't move, couldn't speak, just listened. But it's not enough yet. The other one, the ordinary one, he had countless attempts, failures, tragedies, gravestones stacked to the stars. He earned his way to the answer through repetition. You don't get that luxury. Your game is one shot. The voice paused. I felt something vast considering me. The way you'd consider an ant carrying a crumb 10 times its weight. So I'm betting on you, because you break the script, because you refuse the paths that are offered and carve your own, because you turned a weapon of absolute knowledge into a bread encyclopedia. And I still can't decide if that's genius or insanity. Harvey, the knowledge familiar in my mind, the one I'd been ignoring. Don't die, Toyama Naruhito. I still want to know more about you. The darkness took me. I opened my eyes to candlelight and the sound of an apple being peeled. Lazal sat beside my bed, his lizard hands working a small knife with impossible delicacy. The white scales of his face caught the flame and threw back soft light. Naruhito, he stopped peeling. His slit pupils widened. You're awake. You've been asleep for 3 days. 3 days. AI, the knowledge dragon, had apparently watched over me the entire time, channeling power to keep my body from shutting down permanently. She'd only left when I started breathing normally on my own. Welcome back, Lazal said, his tail uncurled from around the chair leg, the way it did when he was relieved. The others have plenty to say to you, but I'll start simple. He set down the apple and the knife. Welcome home. The door burst open. Stoll stood there in a sleeping shirt, water pitcher in hand, staring at me like she'd seen a ghost. Then she slammed the door shut and vanished. Was that? She'll be back, Lazal said. Give her a moment. I sank into the pillow, 3 days unconscious. Kaiki was dead. Naza Sena was revealed and, if not destroyed, at least broken. My female luck hopeless had been artificial. My inability to connect, manufactured by a woman who wanted me preserved in amber. The lakeside house dream had saved a life. My sauna speech had kept Kaiki alive long enough for her to choose something worth dying for. And then, I'd lost her anyway. But I was home. The adventure continued. Outside the window, the city was preparing for the Dragon Festival. I could hear hammers and laughter. Somewhere, something cosmic had placed a bet on me. I didn't know what that meant yet, but the sauna still needed building, and the bread wasn't going to bake itself. I closed my eyes. For the first time in 3 days, I slept because I chose to. I woke to the sound of an apple being peeled. 3 days. That's how long I'd been out. Lazal sat in the chair beside my bed, a short knife working the skin off a green apple in one long spiral. His tail was curled around the chair leg, the way it did when he was trying very hard to look relaxed. Welcome home, he said. 2 words. No panic, no lecture, no questions about the underworld, or the dead god, or the girl who'd given her life to save a dragon. Just welcome home. I wanted to say something meaningful, something worthy of a man who'd held the fort for 72 hours, while his idiot friend lay unconscious after punching above his weight class for the 100th time. Your peeling technique's gotten better, I said. Lazal's tail uncurled slightly. Nico taught me. She insists the spiral must not break. Nico's a tyrant, the worst kind, a cheerful one. The door exploded open. 5 voices hit me like a wall. Rita's sharp bark, Nico's soprano, Luca launching into my chest like a heat-seeking missile, Pello's sleepy greeting, and Shiro's definitive Dow. The kids swarmed the bed, and for a moment the room was just noise and warmth, and small hands grabbing at my arms. I, the knowledge dragon, watched from a rocking chair in the corner, children's picture books stacked beside her. Apparently, she'd spent the last 3 days babysitting, healing me, and somehow getting 2/3 of my household to call her Ione-sama. The woman was terrifying. Alice never came. Lazal explained it quietly, while the kids argued over who got to sit closest. Alice was in what I called Suki-yoke mode, love avoidance. After the underworld, after she'd torn through the abyss in full dragon form to pull me out, she couldn't look at me without her heart rate spiking into dangerous territory. In dragon terms, showing her true form to a male was basically, well, the human equivalent would have been embarrassing enough. I filed that under problems I have no idea how to solve and moved on to the one I could. 3 days until the Dragon Festival. Our bread stall wasn't built, our supplies weren't secured, and the Morrow Trading Company had spent my unconscious hours squeezing our business partner Doramora like a lemon. So I called a family meeting. Everyone gathered in the living room. Lazal, Stoll, Rita, the kids. Even Doramora showed up at the door, conveniently let in by I told them everything, not about the underworld, about me, where I came from, the other world, the fact that I'd died once already and woke up here. Stoll's sacred relic confirmed I wasn't lying, and the silence that followed was the loudest thing I'd ever heard. You're not going back? Rita asked, voice smaller than I'd ever heard it. This is my home, I said. You're my people. I'm not going anywhere. Then I showed them the white blood, cut my palm with Stoll's blade. The kids stared at the pale liquid that turned to mist on the table surface. Kiriyaiba's corruption, advancing. No cure, no clear timeline. Just another thing to carry forward. I expected fear. What I got was Stoll raising her sword in a knight's salute, Rita nodding like a soldier receiving orders, and Nico telling everyone that she already knew her big brother was special. Lake house, I said. That's still the plan. Build a house by the lake, bakery, freedom, all of us. Lead the way, Lazal said. The lizardman raised his honey water like it was champagne. We'll follow. Right. Enough sentiment. Time to work. The Morrow Company takedown happened fast. Doramora briefed me on the walk over. Their branch manager, a weasel named Michael Kraus, had spent my 3 unconscious days jacking up the price of angel powder to 20 gold coins per kilo, 50 times the market rate. And he'd done it while calling Lazal every slur in the book. I sent Stoll ahead with a letter to Bishop Canossa. I sent Lazal into the shadows with a shopping list of a different kind. Then, Doramora and I walked into the Moro Company's headquarters, and I let the branch manager talk himself into a corner for 20 minutes. He offered me a job, praised my potential, called my friends worthless scum. I smiled and nodded and drank his terrible tea. Disgusting, I said, setting the cup down. What is this? Pig urine? The smile left, the mask came off, and the real negotiation began. Lazal melted out of a shadow in the corner, carrying a stack of documents he'd lifted from the manager's private study. Embezzlement records, expense fraud. The man's face cycled through colors like a traffic light. Then, the guildmaster herself appeared, Spina Morrow, a girl of maybe 16 with the dead eyes of someone who'd been running corporate warfare since childhood. She tried the charm offensive, tried to recruit me, offered protection from the Crow Gang. I put my boot on her desk and told her to stop performing. Your act is worse than hers, I said, jerking my head toward the unconscious branch manager. If you want to play the mastermind, study my friend the bishop. She'd have had me crying into my tea before I realized I'd been fleeced. Lazal produced a second stack of documents. Bigger, the guildmaster's own dirty laundry, falsified tax reports to the Angel Church, backroom deals with bandit crews, corruption top to bottom. Her composure cracked like cheap pottery, and then Stoll crashed through the third-floor window in full silver armor, because of course she did. The church knight, whose reputation preceded her like a shockwave. The hired adventurers took one look at those celestial engravings and went pale. I'm the Inquisitor of the Angel Church, I announced, and this audit starts now. We walked out of there with angel powder at fair market price, a premium stall location for the festival, customer data, investment funding, and the Moro Company's complete surrender, all without drawing a blade. Lazal's shadow work, Stoll's reputation, Canossa's letter securing an independent church supply of angel powder, making the Moro Company's leverage worthless before we'd even sat down. The fight is always won before you enter the room. After the Moro Company rolled over, everything else fell like dominoes. A stubborn butcher named Sleal took one bite of Lazal's bread and converted on the spot. Went from calling Rizadonians filthy to calling Lazal a genius in under 30 seconds. A moneylender screamed at us until Stoll's hand drifted toward her sword, then cheerfully opened the purse strings. The bread was that good. Even bigots couldn't argue with their taste buds. Meanwhile, somewhere in the administrative backlog, my dead quests finally cleared. My adventurer rank shot up. 3 phases of combat achievements, catching up with the paperwork all at once. I barely noticed. The Dwarf Forge was the last stop. The workshop master, a walking mountain of beard and muscle whose voice could strip paint, greeted me like a long-lost drinking buddy. His son Vino, the boy who couldn't forge but could sculpt like a god, had finished a Titanos Maya figurine so precise it made my skin crawl. I commissioned dragon figurines for Doramora's shop, a new product line that only a dragon slayer could authorize. Vino's eyes went wet. First time anyone had put a price on his talent. You're buying it? He said. Good work deserves fair pay, I said. That's how the real world should work. The mobile bread oven was coming along too. Everything clicking into place like gears in a machine. Allies, resources, infrastructure. The Dragon Festival would have the best bread stall this city had ever seen, and behind it would be a Rizadonian baker, a church knight, a pack of street kids, and an ex-slave from another world. The momentum felt dangerous. Things going well always made me nervous. I should have stayed nervous. Bishop Canossa summoned me to the Grand Cathedral alone. No Suvi, no guards, just the two of us in a building big enough to echo. I'm going to die, she said, the way someone might mention they'd run out of milk. I sat down across from her at the little cafe table she kept next to the altar, because of course the bishop had a personal tea station in God's house, and asked her to repeat that, my sacred relic, Crossstar. It shows me the future, and I saw mine end. When? The Dragon Festival? We stared at each other, her slit eyes, purple underneath, my fox eyes, brown and tired. Two schemers facing the one problem schemes can't solve. Then, something happened that I still can't fully explain. Canossa used her authority as bishop to force a temporary link between our minds, her future sight and my quest marker merging into something neither of us expected. Prophecy. Actual honest-to-God prophecy, floating in golden text around the cathedral, like the world's most ominous screensaver. We read them together. Fortune and Hero, 2 entities that would bring death at the festival. Vague enough to drive us insane, specific enough to terrify us. Show me yours, she said, meaning my sacred relic. I showed her the quest marker, the system that turned fate into missions. She showed me the Crossstar, the eye that watched the future unfold. That's cheating! We shouted, simultaneously, pointing at each other. The argument that followed was the most aggressive I'd had since arriving in this world. She called me a game-breaking exploit. I called her a pay-to-win whale. She said my relic was an insult to narrative tension. I said her future sight was the laziest writing tool in existence. We're the same kind of terrible person, she finally admitted, fingers pinching the bridge of her nose. Absolutely not. You're worse. Incorrect. You're worse. But fine. We're both awful. Deal. Awful. Maybe. But alive. For now. We spent hours decoding the prophecies. The death visions converged on two words, fortune and hero, and Canosa, with that frightening brain of hers, connected them to the new arrivals at the Dragon Embassy. A maid named Fortuna and an attendant named Whis. Royal blood from the kingdom, hiding in plain sight. I remembered then, a green-haired girl who'd wandered into our house, drawn by Lazal's bread. The same girl who'd known Lazal was the Shadowfang. I'd forgotten about her in the chaos of the underworld, and that oversight now tasted like ash. I briefed Lazal and Stoll that night. Stoll's solution was immediate and enthusiastic. Let's kill them, she said, beaming. Can't. They're under the Dragon Embassy's protection. We move first. We're the villains. Then what do we do? Nothing. Yet. Stoll didn't understand. Then I told her what we stood to lose. The house, the bakery, the family, everything we'd built. Her eyes went wide, then wet. A single tear rolled down her cheek, and I'd never seen anything more alarming in my life. I don't want to lose this, she whispered. You won't, I promise. We planned through the night. Canosa's prophecy gave us foreknowledge. My quest marker gave us direction. Together, we'd see the threats before they arrived. The strategy was counterintuitive, but necessary. Let the enemy come to us. Let them act first. Respond with overwhelming, justified force. Meanwhile, in the Dragon Embassy's gardens, a different kind of war was being waged. Fortuna, the green-haired princess, had befriended Alice. Genuinely befriended her. Tea and girl talk, and shared memories of a childhood meeting on an island beach. Back when Alice was young enough to be kind to human children, and Fortuna was small enough to believe in dragons as saviors rather than targets. The friendship was real. That's what made it devastating. Fortuna laughed with Alice, comforted Alice, called her Alice Onisama, and every gentle word was a step in a plan to destroy her. Whis, Fortuna's retainer, a man who could have been a hero in another story, watched from the sidelines. His internal monologue, if I'd been able to hear it, would have been something like, what is this woman doing befriending the thing she's planning to kill? But Fortuna knew exactly what she was doing. A betrayal lands hardest when the love behind it is genuine. On the festival's eve, I wandered past a fortune teller's stall at the edge of the market. A traveling troupe, half-elves, musicians, and one very strange creature locked in a mirrored cage. The creature read futures by reflecting them in its glass head. Customers loved it. Happy visions, romantic predictions, vague enough to please everyone. The troupe leader pushed me toward the cage. Crowd cheered. The mirror creature studied me, tilted its glass head, and went completely black. No reflection, no vision, just darkness, spreading across the mirror like ink dropped in water. The leader's smile froze. The crowd went quiet. People who understood what a black reading meant began backing away. The creature itself seemed confused, straining, cracking, as if something behind my future was pressing against the glass from the other side. I didn't understand any of it. Stoll was tugging my sleeve, face pale. The crowd was murmuring. Someone said the word death. Broken equipment, I announced to no one in particular, and walked away. But the fortune teller stared after me with an expression I recognized. The same look Canosa had worn in the cathedral. The look of someone who had seen exactly how this story ended. The Dragon Festival was tomorrow. Every piece was in position. Allies secured. Bread oven built. Strategy planned. Prophecies decoded. And somewhere in the embassy gardens, a princess with a star-shaped smile was braiding flowers into a dragon's golden hair, whispering promises she intended to break. The Dragon Festival opened to the smell of fresh bread and the sound of a city losing its mind with joy. Lazal's hands moved like a machine. No, better than a machine. Machines repeat. Lazal improvised. Each ball of dough hit the air in a juggling arc, and by the time it landed on the board, it was a perfect baguette shape. His tail wagged in tight little circles behind him, the way it did when he forgot anyone was watching. Lazal, you're wagging. I am not wagging. You're wagging. The tail froze, curled around the chair leg, professional. The stall itself was a small miracle of accumulated favors. Dwarf-forged mobile oven with steam injection, church-grade angel powder from Canosa's personal supply line, Nico running the grill with the precision of a tiny, red-haired field commander, Rita and Luca tending the fire, Pello and Shiro being Pello and Shiro. Our banner, Vino's design, a cartoon lizardman biting into a baguette, snapped above us in the festival wind. The opening hours were brutal. Nobody came. The stall next to us sold out of honey cakes in 20 minutes, and our side of the street was a desert. Customers walked past, saw Lazal, and kept walking. One pair stopped, asked what we were selling, spotted the Rizadonian behind the counter, and said, loudly enough for us to hear that they'd rather eat dirt. Lazal's tail went limp. He started to take off his cook's hat, started to say something about stepping into the back, about how maybe the customers would feel more comfortable if they didn't see the cook. Nico shoved past him before he finished the sentence, threw herself in front of the stall, and screamed at passing strangers about how delicious our bread was. Rita joined, then Luca, then Pello, sleepily, holding Shiro. 5 children, making a scene in a crowded market because they believed in a lizardman's bread. It didn't work. Of course it didn't. Desperation isn't marketing. What worked was IE. She showed up after 2 days of absence, sat at the counter like she owned the place, and asked for a hot dog. She'd arrived with the entire magical academy in tow, dozens of armored mages floating in the sky, the moon conjured at noon, the city gawking upward, and all of those people watched the knowledge dragon bite into a hot dog and make a sound that was half moan, half dragon roar. 1 bite. Lazal's bread, my recipe, Nico's sauce. The hot dog was simple, sausage in a baguette, the kind of thing anyone could think of, except nobody in this world ever had, because the angel's shackle on innovation didn't allow it. I asked for a second one, then a third. Then the academy mages came down from the sky and lined up politely. Then the crowd who'd been watching the mages lined up behind them. Then 3 rival bakers stormed over to accuse us of breaking church food laws, only to discover that Canosa had personally authorized our products 2 days ago. The look on their faces when I showed them the church seal on our wrapping paper. I turned those bakers into allies before the day was out, offered them wholesale flour connections through the church supply chain. Lazal shook their hands and told them he admired their craft. The lizardman who'd been invisible his whole life was suddenly the most interesting baker in Agatra. Then Fortuna showed up. She appeared at our stall while Canosa and I were reviewing the day's numbers. Green hair, gentle smile, the perpetual warmth of a girl at a tea party. She knew my name. She called Alice Oni-sama, and she tested me. Small things, leading questions about Alice. A comment about how busy I was, how surrounded by friends, how maybe I didn't care about the dragon as much as she did. Each sentence was a probe, and each probe carried a barb that stuck. Something was wrong with the conversation. A system notification appeared, a quest marker telling me to walk away, to not go to the dragon embassy, to forget about Alice entirely. I crushed it, physically grabbed the floating arrow-shaped notification and crumpled it like paper. Canosa stared. Fortuna stared. Nobody had ever done that before. The quest marker was supposed to be intangible, a system command, not a physical object. My skill didn't care. Won't do as I'm told. That was the name of whatever was wrong with me, and it applied equally to divine suggestions and royal commands. Another arrow appeared. I stomped on it, then 3 more, then a dozen, swarming around my head like fluorescent mosquitoes. I swatted them down one by one. The color's gross, I said, grinding one under my boot. Fortuna's smile never wavered, but something in her eyes changed. Calculation giving way to something rawer. She left. I gave her a hot dog for the road. She never ate it. She never threw it away either. Canosa and I looked at each other. She's the one, we said simultaneously. Same conclusion, same words, same flat tone. We agreed, bring the strongest hand we had, let her make the first move and end it. That evening, after the kids collapsed from exhaustion and Lazal's tail was wagging so hard it knocked over a chair, I appeared in our living room. No warning, no sound, just suddenly there, sitting at the table like she'd been there all along. Name, she said. You may call me I know, I said. AI. She froze. Apparently, this ancient being could dish it out, but couldn't take it. Good to know. We planned. Not bread. War. Canosa's prophecy confirmed what I already knew. Fortuna and Whis. Tomorrow they would make their move at the Dragon Embassy's hunting tournament. We knew it was a trap. We were walking into it anyway. The plan was called self-defense. Step 1. Bring the strongest hand we could assemble. Step 2. Let the enemy move first. Step 3. Kill them with justified force. AI listened to the whole thing without blinking. Interesting, she said. You're using yourself as bait. Both of us, I said. Me and the money grubber. If it doesn't work, then we were wrong. Nobody tries to kill us. And we had a nice day at the festival. Win-win. Ai's dark eyes held mine for a beat too long. Then she smiled. The kind of smile that reminded you that this woman had existed for centuries and had seen plenty of clever humans die. Good luck, Naruhito. You too, Ai. Keep the boss safe. The hunting tournament was underground, a massive arena beneath the Dragon Embassy, packed with screaming spectators and stocked with monsters that would have ended most adventurers' careers. Canosa went to the VIP section with Ai and Suvi as guards. I went down into the pit. Whis found me before I found him. He fell into step beside me in the tunnel, all easy grins and stretched vowels, and we walked side by side toward the arena like two guys heading to a bar. Been a while, Dragon Slayer. We've never met properly. Fair enough. Wispostedas heroes. Toyama Naruhito. He chatted about the weather. I chatted about how someone might be trying to kill me at this festival. Neither of us blinked. Then the arena opened up and the monsters came. And for a while, it was just violence. Good violence. The kind where your body moves before your brain catches up, and every kill feels like a conversation with something primal. Wiz fought barehanded, crushing monster skulls like overripe fruit. I used Kiriyaiba. The white mist seeped into every wound and dissolved them from the inside. We cleared the field. Every monster, every ancient breed, every beast that the Dragon Embassy had stockpiled for this spectacle. The crowd went berserk. Whis backed off at the last second. Let me take the win. I didn't understand why until later. I screamed the name of our bakery into the roaring crowd. Sometimes you take your advertising where you can get it. Then the Minotaur I'd defeated carried me up to the floating platform where Alice sat on her throne. She was dressed down, white dress, silver bracelet, no armor. One blue eye looking at me like I was the most complicated thing she'd ever tried to catalog. Naruhito, she said. Just my name. Careful, like it might break. Draco, I said. Nice festival. Your bread sucks compared to ours, though. The tiniest crack in her composure, a twitch at the corner of her mouth, and then everything stopped. I mean everything. The crowd went silent. Not quiet, silent. The mages in the sky hung motionless. Birds froze mid-flight. The flames on every torch stood perfectly still, not flickering, not moving, just stopped. A hegemon's miracle. Some ancient overlord's relic that could freeze all of reality. Every living thing in the arena, in the city, maybe for miles, all of it, suspended, except me. I stood there in a frozen world and thought, Alice was frozen mid-sentence, her mouth slightly open, one hand reaching toward me. Kanosa was caught tilting her wine glass. Suvi had been picking her nose. I would absolutely tell her about this later. The crowd, the mages, the monsters, Whis. Everyone locked in place like the universe had hit pause. I walked around for a bit, poked a frozen bird, tried to move Alice's arm. No luck. Rigid as stone. Then I noticed the fruit, a karuku, dragon-killing poison. There was a bowl of them on the platform, decorative apparently, because nobody in this world would eat one. A single fruit contained enough toxin to kill a dragon. I picked one up and ate it. Look, I was curious, and I'd been accumulating enough divine modifications that I had a suspicion my biology wasn't exactly standard anymore. Quest marker, Kiriyaiba, Ofudamacho, the cosmic entity's bet. Whatever Harvey had been doing to my internal systems, somewhere between normal human and whatever the hell I am now, my body had stopped playing by this world's rules. The karuku tasted like a slightly bitter apple. My stomach didn't even complain. Alice, frozen but somehow still watching through one unblinking blue eye, looked like she was trying to scream. Relax, I said to her statue-still face. I'm fine. Hey, do you guys have chocolate in this world? Because this fruit, this is basically cacao. This is a chocolate ingredient, and you people have been treating it like poison? No answer. Frozen world. Right. I ate 3 more. The game log helpfully noted that my species classification was Homo sapiens, and that nothing on this planet could escape my digestive system. Comedy hiding a terrifying revelation, as usual. The freeze broke. Reality resumed. Alice grabbed me by the collar and shook me, demanding to know why I had karuku juice on my lips. I told her it was delicious. She did not take this well, but there was no time for that conversation, because Fortuna had already begun. It happened fast. The sequence she'd engineered was elegant, in the way a guillotine is elegant. Simple, efficient, and designed to kill the right people in the right order. First, the sweets. Alice had baked cookies for me, a gift she'd been too embarrassed to deliver for days. Fortuna had ensured that karuku powder, routed through a chain of fortunate supply line accidents spanning an ocean, ended up in Alice's baking ingredients. The cookies were poison. Alice's own hands had made the weapon that was supposed to kill me. I'd eaten them off the floor after the hegemon's miracle knocked me down. They were delicious. Chocolate forward, with a crumbly exterior and a soft center. Genuinely excellent baking. They also should have killed me instantly. Second, Bernald. A portal artifact opened beneath the old butler's feet. He reacted fast enough to thrust his hand through the closing gap, severed it at the wrist, and drove his fingers into Fortuna's shoulder like a knife. But the portal sealed. Bernald, our strongest fighter, was gone, banished to some distant labyrinth. Third, a mirror, an artifact that showed your deepest fear. She aimed it at I. the knowledge dragon, ancient, powerful, carrier of centuries of inherited memory, saw something in that mirror that made her flee. Just gone. The most powerful ally we had, running. Fourth, the Conqueror's word, stolen from her dead older sister's relics, an absolute command over every living being in range, every spectator, every guard, every mage, all of them frozen by royal decree, a stolen crown, stolen authority. And then Fortuna stood in front of Alice, and I saw the dragon's face crumble. "I love you," Fortuna said. Her voice was steady, sincere. "I respect you. I thank you. I will never forget you." Alice's eye was wide. The hand that had been reaching for me was now at her side, trembling. "But please die here, my dragon." I understood in that moment exactly what kind of creature Fortuna was. Not evil, not insane, constitutionally incapable of not pushing forward. She loved Alice the way a fire loves oxygen, genuinely, completely, and destructively. She'd been born this way, an adventurer who couldn't stop adventuring even when the cost was everything she loved. Alice's face. I will never forget Alice's face. The betrayal didn't land like a knife. It landed like finding out gravity was optional. The foundation of the world shifted. Her friend, her genuine, real childhood friend, the girl she'd rescued from an island when they were both 5 years old. That girl had just poisoned her dragon slayer with her own cookies and asked her to die. The baked goods she'd spent days perfecting. The ingredients she'd carefully selected. All of it. A delivery system for murder built by the victim's own hands. Alice's blue eye went dull, just for a second. The light in it flickered like a candle in a hurricane. Then I stood up. I stood up and ate the last poisoned cookie off the ground, made a point of chewing slowly, swallowed, wiped the crumbs off my chin. "This is chocolate," I said, and I punched Fortuna in the face. Not Kiriyaiba, not mist, not divine power, not any of the cosmic nonsense that had been accumulating in my body for months. Just a fist. My fist to her face. The girl whose luck power bent probability itself, whose every attack found its mark and every defense activated automatically. Her luck didn't work on me. My quest marker overwrote her plot armor. Divine hierarchy. My system outranked hers. She went down, hit the floor, and slid, and I felt good about it. Not proud, not righteous, just satisfied. The way you feel when a math problem finally resolves. Fortuna stared up at me from the ground. Green hair splayed, star-shaped irises blown wide. She'd never been hit before, not once in her life. Her luck had always intervened. "How?" she whispered. "Your cookies were fantastic," I said. "Tell your dragon she's a hell of a baker, but next time, use real chocolate. I know the recipe." Wiz came at me then, one arm missing. Bernal's parting gift through the portal had cost him more than he'd shown. He fought with a broken sword, clenched in his teeth, and a body that should have been in a hospital. Fortuna's luck kept his wounds from opening, kept his blood inside, kept him upright when physics said he should be down. But Alice was already moving. The moment I'd stood up, the moment I'd punched Fortuna and the spell of heartbreak had cracked, Alice's eye had reignited. Not with forgiveness. That would come later, or never. With something older. Dragon instinct. A bonded dragon whose partner was under threat. "Naruhito," she said. "My people, don't touch them." "Got it. Everything else? Kill it." We fought together, for the first time. Not her protecting me, not me stumbling behind her power, but side by side. Equals. Her dragon flame gaze turned the air gold. My Kiriyaiba mist turned it white. Where the two met, gold and white, fire and fog. The world became something new. Area denial from her, surgical precision from me. She drove enemies into kill zones. I cut them apart before they could escape. She trusted me to guard her blind side. I trusted her to burn anything that got past my mist. It wasn't biology. It wasn't the mate bond or dragon instinct, or any of the cosmic machinery that had been pushing us together since I killed her on that prairie. It was choice. She chose to fight beside me. I chose to fight beside her. And our powers, which had no business complementing each other, fit together like they'd been designed as a set. Fortuna watched from the ground, Whis shielding her with his broken body, and I saw something flicker across her face. Not fear, not defeat, recognition. "This is my adventure," she whispered, then louder to Whis. "Pull back. We need to leave." They ran. Fortuna's luck opened paths that shouldn't have existed. Walls collapsed to create exits. Debris fell to block pursuit. Every coincidence in the universe conspired to get them out alive. Whis carried her with one arm, and the sheer stubbornness of a man who had decided that dying today wasn't on his schedule. We let them go, not out of mercy, because the city was full of frozen people who needed unfreezing, and because I was gone, and Bernald was gone, and the board had been split wide open. Alice stood beside me in the ruined arena. Her white dress was singed. Her golden hair was tangled. The The cookies she'd baked, the ones that were supposed to be a gift, the ones that became a weapon, the ones I'd eaten off the floor and declared chocolate. Their crumbs were scattered around our feet. "Naruhito," she said. Her voice was very quiet. "Yeah, those were supposed to be for you. They were for me. I ate them. They were great." Silence. The kind that follows an earthquake when you're checking if the ground is done moving. "She was my friend," Alice said. "I know. I do not understand. I know." She didn't cry. Dragons don't cry. Or if they do it where nobody can see. But her hand found mine, and her grip was the strongest thing I'd ever felt. We stood there in the wreckage of the Dragon Festival. The bread stall was abandoned. The lake house dream felt very far away. I was missing. Bernald was banished. Canosa's death prophecy was still ticking. And somewhere out there, a girl with star-shaped eyes and an inability to stop pushing boundaries was running toward whatever came next. But I was standing. Alice was standing. And for the first time, we'd fought as equals. That was enough. For now, that was enough. Phase 10, the price of blood. Alice was already gone by the time I stood up. Golden fire tore across the sky above Agatra's rooftops, a streak of sun ripping through festival smoke. Below, a headless horse carriage thundered down the main boulevard, scattering civilians, overturning food carts, sending children screaming into doorways. 4 horses, no heads, hooves that cracked cobblestone like eggshells. Fortuna held the reins with her one remaining arm. Whis stood behind her on the footboard, his red hair whipping, one arm gone, a spare sword clenched in his teeth. They were bleeding out. They were laughing. I heard Alice's voice from somewhere above the rooftops. Not words, just that deep-throated dragon snarl that meant she'd stop thinking in sentences. Golden flame arced down from the sky, and I watched it curve, away from the carriage at the last second, splashing harmlessly against a stone fountain, because there was a mother and child standing 3 meters from the impact point. Old Alice would have burned through them without blinking. This Alice, the one who'd learned to cook festival bread, who'd let Lazal wag his tail at her counter, who'd held my hand in the wreckage 20 minutes ago. This Alice flinched. Fortuna knew. She'd been Alice's friend. She'd eaten dinner at our table, laughed at our jokes, and cataloged every weakness that warmth created. Now she drove that carriage through the most crowded streets she could find, zigzagging through market squares and festival pavilions, because she understood one simple truth. A dragon who cares about people can be outrun by people. I was on the Minotaur's back, crashing through side streets, with the cursed bucket helm still bolted to my skull, draining my strength with every heartbeat. The English voice inside the helmet kept prattling, analyzing my blood composition, flagging my white blood cell count as no longer classifiable as human. I didn't care. All I cared about was the golden streak overhead, getting further and further away, and the headless carriage disappearing into the market district. Then the carriage stopped. Alice descended in the main road, golden hair, split pupil eyes, the trident burning in her fist. No more hesitation. She had cleared the street with a single wall of controlled flame, herding civilians away. Smart, terrifying, beautiful. Was launched off the carriage and the fight became vertical, rooftop to rooftop. Trident versus broadsword, a collision of forces that cracked masonry and shattered rain gutters. Alice threw him like a doll. He got up. She threw him again. He got up again. I know that kind of fighter. The engine warms up when it should be cooling down. Every blow he takes makes him faster, angrier, more precise. His body adapts mid-combat, adjusting to Alice's speed, her timing, her attack patterns. The way a virus learns to resist a vaccine, an anti-dragon weapon disguised as a man. Alice landed a clean hit. The trident punched through his guard and sent him cartwheeling through 3 rooftops. Tiles exploded. Dust bloomed. She waited. I waited. 10 seconds later, rubble shifted, and a red-haired man crawled out laughing, blood on his teeth and fire in his eyes. "Not bad, dragon," he called up. "Do it again." And through it all, Fortuna watched from the ground with that dreamy, half-lidded smile, adjusting probability, bending coincidence. Alice's flame would miss by inches. Wiss's landing would miraculously avoid the broken glass. A structural beam would give way under Alice's foot at exactly the wrong moment. Luck wielded like a scalpel. I learned something about Wiss that night. Not from him, from the way he moved. He fought like someone who'd learned violence before he learned language. No formal training, just the brutal efficiency of a body that figured out, very young, that the world would crush it if it didn't crush the world first. Dirt-poor child of a fallen knight family, day labor since he could walk, digging trenches, hauling stone, building the roads that led to dungeons he'd never be allowed to enter. The adults who ran the work crews skimmed 90% of what they owed him. When he got old enough to fight back, he discovered he was better at killing than digging. The world was a hell where the strong crushed the weak. That wasn't philosophy. That was his childhood in a sentence. And then Fortuna found him, in a bandit hideout, sitting on a throne of corpses, alone in the dark. She looked at his blood-soaked hands and said, "You're lucky." He looked at her standing in the moonlight and thought she was the moon itself. "Let me show you how far we can go," she'd told him. "Let's see how deep we can sink our claws into this rotten world." That was the whole pitch, and it was enough. Fortuna analyzed the battle coolly from the ground, even as blood soaked through the tourniquet on her severed arm. How do you fight a dragon? Scales deflect swords. Wings own the sky. Fire redefines the temperature of everything around it. Centuries of combat experience make prediction nearly impossible. Their answer was honest. You can't beat a dragon. You survive long enough for something to change. Something changed. Alice cornered them in a plaza. Whis was down, trident through his abdomen, thrown into a building that collapsed on top of him. Alice had torn one arm from each of them in combat. She walked toward Fortuna slowly, flame pooling in her palms. The dragon had won. All she had to do was close her fist. But Fortuna's remaining hand was already inside her travel bag, and out came a silver bell, small, tarnished, crusted with something dark that might have been old blood. The bell of ill-fated war declaration, stolen from her dead sister's sealed vault, an artifact so dangerous it had been locked away behind 3 layers of enchantment and a warning written in the vault keeper's own blood. Fortuna didn't hesitate. She rang it. The sound was wrong, too clear, too far-reaching, like a bird call that could be heard on the other side of the world. It passed through walls, through stone, through the space between dimensions, and something heard it. The air split open. What crawled through the gap was, I don't have a word. Monster implies something that follows biological rules. This thing was a violation. Imagine a body the size of an infant, pudgy, short-limbed, belly distended. Now replace the entire head with 2 enormous ears, pressed together face to face, ear canals forming a grotesque approximation of a mouth. The ears were the face. There were no eyes. It tilted its ear head and spoke. "Let's play!" Yaha! Broken English. Cheerful. The voice of something that didn't understand death, because death didn't apply to it. A phoenix, one of the legendary immortal firebirds, a being that entire armies couldn't scratch, had been drawn by the bell's sound too. It swept down, snatched the ear in its burning talons, tore its head off with its beak. The ear laughed. From inside the phoenix's throat, it laughed. Then the phoenix's head exploded from within, a burst of red and orange and bone, like a firework made of meat. The ear crawled out of the neck stump, reformed its body in seconds, and bounced on the phoenix's corpse. Sound itself disappeared. For 3 seconds, the world went completely silent, as if the ear had swallowed every vibration in a 100-meter radius. Then sound returned, and with it, that laugh. Gya-ha-ha-ha-ha-ha! Fortuna's smile was gone. She understood now. She had rung a bell she could never unring. Ai arrived without sound. One moment, the field was chaos. The ear bouncing toward Fortuna and Whis. Alice recoiling from the sheer wrongness of the creature. The next moment, a woman in a black robe stood between them. Silver hair, 3 dark eyes, 2 normal, 1 on the forehead, all barely distinguishable from the black void of her irises. The knowledge dragon, the oldest mind in the empire. She glanced at the ear once. Water materialized from nothing, a perfect sphere imprisoning the creature, then instantly converting to aqua regia, an acid that dissolved the thing's flesh on contact. The ear screamed, blackened, crumbled to carbon inside its liquid coffin. Casual, effortless. The most powerful magical being in the world, solving a problem like swatting a fly, but it wasn't dead. Ai knew. I'm certain she knew, because her next action wasn't defensive. It was desperate. She opened her mouth and swallowed the ear whole. Inside her body, it began to rampage. I wasn't there to see it, but I felt it through the mist, through Kiriyaiba's connection to the battlefield, through the white fog that had become an extension of my senses. I felt the wrongness of something indestructible thrashing inside something ancient, felt the knowledge dragon's internal world, a dimension she'd created inside herself, filled with traps and environments designed to slow the creature, being torn apart room by room. Black blood leaked from Ai's mouth. Her fingers trembled. Her human form rippled, threatening to dissolve. But she walked toward Fortuna and Whis. They were broken, 1 arm each, bleeding, backed against rubble. Whis raised his spare sword with his remaining hand. Fortuna's eyes were wide, all composure gone. Ai stopped in front of them. Blood ran from the corner of her lips, and her voice was steady. "You two are magnificent." They froze. "You brought the Empire to its knees with 2 people. No army, no divine backing, no inherited throne. Just talent and will and the refusal to break. You are magnificent." Neither of them moved. Whis' sword arm lowered 1 inch. Fortuna's trembling stopped. I thought about what those words meant to people like them. Whis, who'd been a disposable laborer since childhood, 90% of his wages stolen, his body sold for trench work, his value measured in how much dirt he could move before he collapsed. Fortuna, whose family tried to kill her, whose twin sister she'd had to murder in return, whose entire existence had been defined by what she could take from a world that gave her nothing. Two people who'd survived by hating everything. And here was a dragon, a being from the highest tier of existence, something that could incinerate cities with a thought, looking them in the eyes and saying, "I see what you did." It was extraordinary. AI meant every word. That was the terrifying part. She had spent centuries studying humans. She respected genuine achievement even in enemies, especially in enemies, because she understood something most people don't, that greatness doesn't care which side you're on. "But I will kill you," she said. The moment shattered, Wiz raised his sword. Fortuna screamed her luck activation. It didn't matter. The ear broke free. It tore through Ai's stomach first, those stubby arms punching outward through her spine. Then it was outside, and it was playing. That's the only word for what it did. Playing. It pulled out her right arm at the root, slowly, like a child removing a doll's limb to see what was inside. Ai screamed. It bent her left leg backward at the knee until the joint inverted. It grabbed her remaining arm and twisted it in a full rotation until tendons snapped like wet rope. The thing was dancing, bouncing on its stubby legs, ears flopping, while it systematically destroyed the most powerful magical being I'd ever known. Ai's human form dissolved. The black robe melted away. What emerged was the truth she'd spent centuries hiding. A dragon, but not the elegant silver creature the legends described. This was a burned thing, a broken thing. Black scales charred and peeling, wings torn to membrane rags, 3 horns twisted and fused into a gnarled mass of Karit. One eye clouded, the other too barely open. The body of an ancient being who had been defeated, badly, a long time ago, and never fully healed. "Don't look at me!" Her voice, the real one, not the composed human mask, cracked the air. It was a roar and a plea and a child's scream all at once. "Don't look at me! Don't look!" She was ashamed, not of losing, of being seen. The human body she'd crafted so carefully, the beautiful mask she'd worn for centuries to walk among us, to stand beside Naruhito without him flinching, it was gone. And what remained was the truth. A burned, broken, ugly thing that had loved someone for lifetimes and never been loved back. The ear didn't care about any of that. It grabbed her ruined horn and began to pull, slowly, like unwrapping a present. The knowledge dragon, the being who'd swallowed oceans of information across centuries, who'd guided empires and toppled kingdoms, who'd carried the inherited love of every predecessor who'd ever looked at my face and felt something stir, was being torn apart by a thing the size of a toddler, and she couldn't stop it. But she wasn't dead. One claw, her last intact claw, the one on her left forelimb, half charred, cracked at the base. While the ear was busy pulling her horn, I drove that claw through its back from behind. "Lose weight, idiot," she whispered. The ear paused, looked down at the claw protruding from its belly, tilted its ear head. I held it there, one claw. Every remaining scrap of magical energy focused on keeping that single point of contact, keeping the creature pinned for seconds that cost her everything. Her voice dropped to something barely audible, a whisper meant for someone who wasn't there. "I'm sorry." A beat. "I'm sorry I'm useless." Another. "I'm sorry I lied." Black blood pooled under the dragon's broken body. "I'm sorry. I couldn't be enough." The ear began to move, twisting against the claw, and Ai's grip was failing. I could feel it through the mist, feel the last heat leaving her body, feel centuries of accumulated love burning itself out, to buy one more second, and then another, and then white fog. It rolled in from everywhere and nowhere. Not weather, something older, something with intention. It filled the streets, the plaza, the spaces between broken buildings, until visibility dropped to nothing. Fortuna, Whis, Alice, the ruined dragon, the ear, all of them swallowed by white. In the distance, a dog howled. Not a wolf, not a monster, a dog. The howl of a mutt on a chain who smelled his owner coming home, Taro. My legs were moving before my brain finished the thought. The bucket helm was screaming, English words, warnings, system alerts, something about paranormal convergence exceeding measurable thresholds. I didn't hear any of it. All I heard was the howl. I walked into the fog. The bucket helm cracked, just cracked, down the middle, and fell off my head in 2 pieces. The mist pouring from my body was too dense, too alive. Whatever that relic was trying to suppress, it couldn't hold anymore. My blood was more mist than hemoglobin. My bones hummed at a frequency that made the cursed iron surrender. Good riddance. Kiriyaiba, the blade forged from my first friend's soul, the weapon that had been leaking mist from my body for weeks, the sword that was more tarot than steel, sang in my hand. Not a sound, a feeling. The feeling of a dog pressing its nose against against your palm and refusing to leave. The fog parted. The ear was there, still pinned by Eye's claw, twisting, laughing, surrounded by the carnage of a dragon it had destroyed. It looked at me, or whatever looking meant for a thing whose face was two ears pressed together. "Oh, fuck," it said. I didn't respond. Kiriyaiba moved, not a swing, a statement. The blade passed through the ear's left arm at the shoulder. Then, before the creature could process the loss, a second cut took the right. Both arms hit the ground. The ear stumbled. For the first time since it had arrived, it wasn't laughing. The fog held. Taro's howl echoed through it, longer now, sustaining, a sound that filled the white space with something the ear had never encountered. Not power, not magic, not knowledge, just a dog who loved someone and became a sword so he'd never have to leave. I stood in the fog with my best friend in my hand, and the most dangerous creature any of us had ever faced was, for the first time, still. The dog howled. The blade hummed. The fog did not clear. End Phase 10.